YouTube. The Monday after the Super Bowl, football is finally over. We're here to break down the Super Bowl. Gonna go over everything that happened, everything historically significant you may have missed throughout the Super Bowl. We're also gonna go through, break down the past 10 Super Bowls, and try and rank this one with the other ones and see how highly it ranks. Is it, in fact, the worst Super Bowl of the decade? We're definitely going to go through all of that, but it's over. I mean, it was a long journey. We're finally here, and now we're going to be without football for what, 7 months?
Yeah, yeah, because football's back on the 8th of September. So, yeah, we have 7 months without football. Luckily for some fans, basketball is picking up right now. We have baseball coming back for spring training, but right now, we're without football for 7 months. And we get to see the aftermath of the Super Bowl with Bad Bunny and his performance and the Seahawks winning the Super Bowl, but we're here to break it all down. And the swan song in the NFL season.
Yeah, I mean, if you're a baseball fan, you're lucky because I feel like baseball never leaves. I mean, as soon as the World Series ends, it's um, free agency. You already have like trades being made, and then before you know it, spring training camp is there. It's literally only 2 months without baseball. I remember listening to sports radio, and then it'd literally be a month after the Red Sox would be out of the playoffs or World Series, and like, all right, they're gonna be gearing up to practice in a couple weeks. And you're like, what? What are you talking about?
Yeah, they have pretty much just like November, December, and January entirely off. And then they start mid February. But then it's like spring training. And by the time they actually start, it's like mid March. But then it's just fucking 7 months of baseball. And it's really not important until like August. And even August is a stretch. But it's going to be baseball nonetheless. And we love baseball.
Yeah, and the nice thing if you're like a baseball player too is you can go places and no one's really gonna know who you are. You just walk around a mall, could see like a professional MLB player, unless you're a super fan, really not gonna get mobbed by anyone. So it's a lot more of a chill lifestyle. I feel like where if you're an NBA player, like oh that guy's 7 feet tall. Coin flip, he's probably in the NBA if he's in shape.
Well, I remember when I lived in Boston and I went to like a random Chipotle, and in front of me was like this tall Cuban guy, and I didn't even think anything of it. And then he turns around, and I'm like, "Holy shit! This is the star shortstop for the Red Sox, Sander Bogarts." And
Oh my
like
god.
seeing a tall Cuban guy in Boston is not rare. And then lo and behold, it's like my favorite Red Sox player at the time because this is after they traded Mookie Betts. And I'm like, holy shit, this is. And also, I had worked a concert where he happened to be in one of the suites a few weeks ago. So I'm like, wait, you're the guy that was at the J Balvin concert. You're the one that gave me a $250 tip. Like Xander Bogarts, I love you. You're the best. But yeah, you're right. Baseball players, like, if you're not a baseball fan, you're not going to recognize them
Yeah,
unless if
I
maybe
mean,
you're
he
in
funded a
Boston.
lot of Chipotle with that tip, I guess. Probably that, split it between that and Tasty Burger.
Tasty Burger and beer. That was like, it was spent within 48 hours. It was like burgers, gambling, and beer. It was like all we needed.
Speaking of burgers, I don't know if you saw this. I was looking at the menu for the Super Bowl. Did you see the $180 burger that they had for sale at the Super Bowl?
No, what the fuck? Why
If
would
you
anybody
haven't
pay that?
seen it, look up the $180 for burger for the Super Bowl. It literally has a bone in it. It's like a tomahawk a steak served as a
Oh,
burger. And first of all, if you want to share it, you can. But I have no idea how you would even eat this. It's like they just put two pieces of bread around a tomahawk steak and then put some cheese and sauce on top of it. Like, how's anyone supposed to eat this? And there's gonna be people who you already spent 8,000, 10,000, 15 grand on tickets. You might as well spend $180 on a burger while you're at it just to say you did it. But I was looking at it, I'm like, I don't even know how I would eat this, to be honest.
so this is supposed to feed four people, and it's a braised veal shank. So it's the bone with like the
Yeah.
meat on it, and then there's just a bunch of fancy words. They got a blue fondue, a house baked brioche bun. It's supposed to serve four people, and after California taxes, it's about $50 each. And I'm looking at this menu. They have a nice woman from the Athletic that reviews it, Jana Bardall. Good for her, but very underwhelming from the looks of it. But $200 burger, that's disgusting. This is like people are going to talk about America this, America that. They're going to be bitching about the Super Bowl, and we're going to cover that. But the reason why people are bitching about this shit is because there's $200 burgers. Like this is the shit that's disgusting to me. It has nothing to do with like, oh, there's a halftime show with a guy who sings Spanish. Like, no, none of that matters. The fact that the Super Bowl, after spending 10 grand on the Super Bowl, you go and get a burger that's $200. Fuck that. That's stupid. That is the dumbest shit I've ever seen. And that burger looks fucking disgusting.
It's like, when do you have time to get it, too?
It's just slathered in blue cheese fondue. It looks actually atrocious. If you've seen a picture, or if you're listening and you want to look at it, this thing looks like a fucking nightmare. And not in a good way. It's just covered in blue cheese. There's a bone sticking up through the bun. This looks actually heinous. And even if somebody just bought me this just at the stadium and I just was like, hey, go get me a burger, and they come back with this, I would be disgusted. I would be like, why did you think I wanted this? And they're going to Venmo me $200. I'm like, no, I'm not buying. This looks like a fucking shish kebab of blue cheese slop.
How are you
Actually
supposed
atrocious.
to eat that in the stands? The stands too. It has a bone sticking out of it, and if it's supposed to feed 4 people, how are you gonna share a burger between 4 people? Like, when I think about burger, I think about this. You can hold it, actually pick it up, put it up to your face, not a fork and knife dish item. So you just made $180 burger for the sake of it being $80 burger. I would understand if this was like Texas and they're like, Texas, go big or go home. But like for California, and then they just have a bone sticking out of it. And if you're sitting down in the stands with no table, how are you supposed to cut into this? Like, you're most likely probably going to drop it. So unless you're in a box seat, there's no actual real way of eating this. So if you were at the Super Bowl and you did spend $180 on this burger, I want to let me know how your experience was with this one, because I saw this and I'm like, no way. Like, you already
Disgusting.
spent 8 grand at the cheapest to go to the Super Bowl, and then you're gonna spend $200 on a burger.
Now, let's say that we were in Jerry World in Dallas, and they had a burger that instead of like it's $180, but it's 18 patties. And it's like kind of like basically like how the Big Mac has a bunch of different buns that builds it up. If they
Yeah.
did that, but with like a 18 patty burger, that's $180. Maybe then, because that could be shared between like 7 or 8 people. But instead, we have this fucking shish kebab trounced in blue cheese, which I'm in the minority. I love blue cheese. Blue cheese is like it's one of the weird things. A lot of people don't like blue cheese. It's an acquired taste. I get it. It's mold. Let's call it what it is. It's mold. But but like the cheese, you have to eat it with a fork, and like I'm one of those people that if you're gonna, I personally believe like my burger philosophy is that a burger should be cheap and not cute. That's why
Yeah.
like McDonald's has 15,000 locations. That's why In-N-Out is as popular as it is. Freddy's, I forget the place that we went to in
Pete Terry's.
P. Terry's. Like burger places are supposed to be cheap, affordable. We're supposed to get a soda, a drink, or a soda, fries, and a burger for $20 nowadays. Maybe $15 if it's a good place. But like 100, yeah, just disgraceful. I can go on for hours. That's not how a burger should be.
Yeah. Especially that, and like burgers, like honestly, like sometimes the cheaper ones are better. Like anytime you go to like a upscale burger place, usually it's disappointing. But if I spend
No,
$4 on a double cheeseburger at Pete Terry's, I'll never be disappointed.
no, not at all. I had McDonald's this weekend for the first time in like 15 years, getting a burger. I got a double quarter pounder with cheese. It was delicious. I was like, damn, I've been wrong. The whole problem that I had with burgers, or fast food burgers, my entire life was the fact that they had condiments on it the whole time. That was the thing that hooked me up. So anytime someone we talked about how good McDonald's and Wendy's and Burger King and all these places were, the problem was is they have it with ketchup and relish and onions and tomato and all the shit that I don't want on it. I just got it plain, and it was fantastic. So McDonald's is back in my orbit.
Yeah, honestly, a plain burger is fine. Like, just give me like a plain burger with like pepper jack cheese. I'm good. I don't need
Yes.
all the extra stuff on it. We don't need to fit an entire like mushroom stock head on top of my burger. I'm all
Yeah.
set with
Or
that.
like Some of the millennial burger bars will have like crinkled. They'll have like the duck fat fries, and it's served with like an IPA that's $14. And then they'll have their burger that's like the thick burger that's like this thick, and it's served with like chipotle. It's always a chipotle aioli sauce. It's just disgraceful. That's not how a burger should be.
Yeah.
But I digress.
And then, yeah, we did have a game that was played on Sunday. It's kind of surreal when the Super Bowl comes on. Really doesn't feel real, and you kind of feel the nerves going into the game. To start the game, we had Charlie Puth do the national anthem, and then we also had Green Day open up the game. I did not see Green Day open up the game. I turned on Peacock at like 5:25, so I got it just in time for the national anthem. But overall, I thought it was okay. Like a little touch too zesty, I feel like, for Charlie Puth. But overall, I thought it was good. And then the aerial shot of the fighter jet when you had the angle of the two pilots in the cockpit, I thought was really cool, and that was well done.
Yeah, I feel like Green Day did a good job. I was expecting them to be like more political because that's kind of just how they are, but they had two good songs. They
cut
did.
their microphone when
They
they were
did.
about
Oh,
to say something.
yeah, that checks out. But they did Holiday, and I think American Idiot, and it was great. They did good. And then Charlie's Puth, he's got a good voice. I can't say anything negative about it. It's the national anthem, so it's always going to be like overly drawn out. They did like Demi Lovato a few years ago. Last year, I think, was Chris Stapleton. And national anthem's always dragged out, but he did fine. And it's Santa Clara, so like if he wants to be a little zesty, like checks out for where they are. But that part was fine. The halftime show has gotten a lot of grief online. There's even an alternate Super Bowl halftime for some people that checked out that. But what was your overall thoughts of Bad Bunny's halftime show?
I didn't watch it too intently. That's like kind of my intermission, so I was making like my food for the second half, but I thought it was okay. I mean, for his style of music, it's all the same to me. It's just generic, and they all have the same beat. I don't know any other genre of music where every single song literally has the same drum pattern. So like for me, it's like yeah, he came out there, he was fine. I get why people like it. It's like party style music, gets a little bit of a vibe going, and he wasn't like super political that I heard. And he just had the thing at the end where he like compared America, and then he did the roll call for like all the countries. But I feel like there was just a lot of drama because people don't like that the Super Bowl halftime was in Spanish, and then you also had counter marketing from Turning Point USA. So I feel like that's really the reason why it was extra polarized this year, where I feel like generally for the Super Bowl halftime show, you always have the boomers like, what is this slop that the kids listen to nowadays? I want Metallica every single year. And you're like, okay, we get it. You want Metallica, you want Pearl Jam, you want all your favorite bands from the 80s to play, but like Bad Bunny's still the highest streamed artist outside of Taylor Swift, and Taylor Swift has said no to doing the Super Bowl halftime show. So if you're going to go out and get someone, he's still really popular, and it fits with the NFL strategy of trying to appeal to more of a global fan base as well. They're going to have 9 international games, which is setting a record for next year as well. So for me, it's like, it's not for me. I get why people like it, and I like kind of understand why people don't like it, but at the end of the day, it's just a halftime show. It's not that deep. It's a intermission between a game of football being played. I have no idea why people are like were angry at people who didn't like it, and then angry at people who liked it. Like it's just I feel like because of the counter marketing, because we have an alternative halftime show, and then you're gonna have Turning Point and NFL purchasing bots to argue with each other. So I feel like a lot of that is mostly online and not actually in real life.
Yeah, I agree. I think for me, and we said this before we previewed the Super Bowl, it's like we don't go to the Super Bowl for the halftime. Like we don't care. They had Maroon 5 a few years ago, and I'm not a notorious big Maroon 5 fan, and I still watched it and it was fine. Coldplay a few years ago, they had Coldplay, and I hate Coldplay, and I still watched it. It's fine. Bad Bunny, he's one of those people, like if you're at a club and Bad Bunny comes on, like probably gonna dance, especially if you've had some tequila. Like it's fine. I see why people are upset about the no Spanish thing. Like that's fine. The reason why I was upset about the halftime show is I downloaded Kelshi and I looked at some of the bets available to me, and I decided to place two bets. I'm like, oh, this person's not going to be in the halftime show because why the fuck would they be in the halftime show? And a second bet with this person, like, why the fuck are they going to be in the halftime show? Not about the Patriots to win. And lo and behold, the only two people that I predicted to not be in the halftime show were the only people that were in the halftime show. I said, there's no way Lady Gaga, why the fuck would Lady Gaga be in the halftime show? This is easy. For some reason, they had like 70% of the public voting on Lady Gaga. I'm like, they don't have any songs together. Lady Gaga, she's not relevant right now. Like, why do we have Lady Gaga? It doesn't matter. And then I voted against Ricky Martin. I'm like, Ricky Martin's irrelevant. Why would they have Ricky Martin here? Ricky Martin was a gamble. I'm not going to lie there. But Lady Gaga made perfect sense. And so I bet it. And if I cashed, I would have made like $500. Instead, I lost $80. So that's my beef with the halftime show. The only two people that I bet on to not be there, they were there. So fuck the halftime show for that reason. The fact that they paired Lady Gaga and Bad Bunny together, a combo that makes no sense at all. That makes no sense. So that's my only beef with the halftime show, really.
Yeah, isn't like the halftime show like notorious for like not wanting people to play instruments live either? Like when the Red Hot Chili
Yeah.
Peppers did it, they like unplugged all of their instruments because they didn't want to like fake it. So they just like
Yeah.
were holding their instruments up in the air, playing
Yeah.
them. Like it's like not a big deal. I don't understand why people get super worked up about it, and it's really my intermission. Like I went ahead and started my dinner, and that's what I did during the halftime show. And then I listened to it.
Yeah.
I'm like, oh, cool, Fast and Furious soundtrack, love it.
Yeah. I smoked a pre-roll and I got my steak and cheese DoorDash to me after like 2 hours, and then crushed my steak and cheese, filled up my drink because I had Jameson Cokes like watching the game, and it was great. Like the halftime show, like I didn't really think much of it. It was over pretty quickly, and I was like, "Oh, this was fun." I go on Twitter, and there's half of the argument is like, "Oh my God, Bad Bunny did amazing, best halftime show ever." The other half was like, "Oh my God, what a disgrace! America this, America that, it's so bad." And I just didn't care. I'm like, Bad Bunny, where does it rank as far as like my all-time favorite halftime shows? It's probably pretty low for me. But look at me, I'm fucking a white boy from New England. Of course, it's not going to be my top one. My top one's going to be
Yeah,
like fucking Creed from the 2000s. Like, yeah, no shit. But it's not bad. I wasn't like he sucked or anything. He was fine.
yeah. I was like, I saw it. I'm like, that was fun. It's cool. It's all right. Everyone at the stadium seemed like they were enjoying it too, and I do feel like it's more of like the NFL trying to push into more of a global market and then trying to take a little bit of that market share from soccer, which is where
Yeah.
most people think that he would be, and then everyone's like, well, now we're gonna make sure that the halftime for FIFA we're gonna have Limp Bizkit do it. It's like, okay, yeah, sure, I
Nice.
guess.
Yeah, but like you got to think like the season started off in what, Mexico City this year, and then
Yeah,
or Sao Paulo. They went to Sao Paulo. They went to Mexico City. They had a game in Berlin. They have 9 international games next year. So it's like they literally started the city. They started the whole season in a Spanish-speaking country, and they ended it with a Spanish-speaking singer. It's like, okay, that checks out. It seems like they're trying to expand their base. Most importantly, especially with games in Argentina and Brazil and all the other games that will continue to happen here, are all like Central America. So it feels like that's like kind of their audience that they're targeting the most. And Bad Bunny is like the biggest by far in Central America. So yeah, next year is probably going to be J Balvin, and they're going to cry even more.
yeah. Also, like one of the highest streamers in the world at this point. So he's like he's just a pop star. So if you're gonna get someone for the Super Bowl and you can get the most popular artist for that year, you go out there and do it. And this is like Jay-Z has been doing the Super Bowl halftime show since 2019, so it's definitely him. And then equally though, on the other side, you had people mad that there was a alternative halftime show. It's like I don't get either of you. Why are you letting this affect your cortisol? And the fact that people go out of their way to post about it on social media, like, why are you bothered by this enough to go out there and post online just so everyone knows what team you're on? Like, I'm with Team Super Bowl Bad Bunny, and I'm with Team Turning Point USA, and then everyone always goes up there and shit posts the Super Bowl halftime, and I feel like that's nothing new. But like, I feel like you're both wrong, and it's like what you can do is if you don't want to watch it, then don't, and then move on. Why is this affecting your cortisol level?
Yeah, I agree. I do think like the alternate halftime show, like you're in the middle of watching the game, and then the halftime show's about to start. You're like, nope, not watching this guy. Let me switch over to Kid Rock. Like, I don't care who you pick, because like, who would I rather listen to, Kid Rock or Bad Bunny? Depends on how much alcohol is in my system, if I'm being honest. But like, just for you, the fact that you had to get up, grab your controller, switch over to Turning Point halftime show so that you could watch Kid Rock and Lee Bryce sing like the national anthem. Like, there you go. That's patriotic if that's what you want. Hopefully, you got your burger served with bacon, I guess. But I didn't care. Like, yeah, at the end of the day, it's like, okay, both halftime shows. One was like maybe more polarizing for the lack of Spanish. The other one was more polarizing because it was just so gung ho America. But they were both corny. Like, they were both like, we have the same take. It's like they're both corny. Halftime shows are corny because like you and I are watching it for football reasons, and everyone's freaking out because the commercials or the halftime show. Like, who cares? This is literally the intermission before the second half.
Yeah, that's why I turned my phone off during the game.
Yeah. People are just
But like,
texting you stupid shit.
yeah, it's like you're going off about like the commercials. People are like posting like during the game. Like, I don't want to read anything about the game during the game. All I want to do is listen to what Chris Collinsworth has to say about the game. And one thing I don't think he mentioned is the coin toss. Patriots are now 0-3 when they've won the coin toss, 6-0 when they have lost it in the Super Bowl. Very
Shit.
bizarre stat.
It's not a nothing stat, though.
No.
That's not a nothing. The fact that now we know that if there's a new pope next year, we bet the Seahawks Super Bowl easy, and we know if the Patriots lose the coin toss, that we pick them to win the game, and if they win, it's over. Game's already over. We can just call it as it is. We don't have to waste the 60 minutes.
Yeah, people were saying it was divine intervention that the Patriots got to the Super Bowl, and everyone was saying that it's New England luck, it's Patriots luck. Like, no, no, no. It was the Pope getting the Seahawks the best possible matchup in the Super Bowl because when a new Pope is appointed, they always go to the Super Bowl, and in 2014, they won the Super Bowl. So everyone is saying this is for New England. All of this good stuff is happening in New England's favor because they're the Patriots, because they're the destined team. The same way that the Celtics got to face the Heat without Jimmy Butler, got to face the Pacers, and Tyrese Halliburton got hurt, and then just got to face the Dallas Mavericks in the finals, even though everyone picked the Mavericks to beat the Celtics because Porzingis wasn't going to be there. But it ended up being for Seattle's benefit because the Patriots blitzed 69% of the time, yet predominantly with a four-man rush, Seattle was able to get there more often, blitzing less, just rushing four guys. DeMarcus Lawrence had himself a day. Their defensive line, their defensive tackles also had a great day, and everyone realized that Will Campbell is not a left tackle. He was their first round overall pick, and this guy is a great guard probably in the NFL, but the amount of times he just got pushed into Drake May, and he was really the tone setter for the entire game. And this was the worry about the Patriots the entire playoffs because he's the reason why Drake May had 7 fumbles. Part of that is on Drake May for not being aware, but it really affected Drake May, and you could see him become more and more gun shy in that Broncos game. And then immediately starting out this game, they start blitzing the Patriots early on. You get them out of a rhythm, and then you could see Drake May really wasn't able to find his rhythm in this one because, as Chris Collinsworth pointed out, damn, Drake May sucks at some points. That open throw to Austin Hooper was pain. That could have been a touchdown going down the field. I get Sam Darnold also missed a wide open one to Jackson Smith and Jigba, so those kind of cancel each other out. But in a game where you're outmatched and overmanned, like this is exactly why I picked the Seattle Seahawks to win because while I do think that the Patriots did beat already 3 better rosters than they had, I just didn't see a scenario where the Patriots' offensive weapons were going to be good enough to get them over the Seahawks, especially that offensive line for Drake May, and you just saw how it affected him in the Houston Texans game when he kept fumbling it. He got frustrated, and then gun shy in Denver, and then that was the entire Super Bowl game where we're just not gonna throw until the fourth quarter.
Yeah. I can say, like, Will Campbell, everyone's going to make fun of Will Campbell and how he played. Him coming off the MCL sprain, he hasn't really been the same since. The first, like, 8 or 9 games when he came in pre injury, he was looking like a top offensive lineman in the NFL. But post injury, it's been really rough for him. Drake May got sacked 6 times. He ends up having the most sacks in playoff history after that. Couldn't get anything going on the ground. The defensive line for the Seahawks were outstanding in this game, but it's like what you mentioned. He got gun shy. And honestly, like when we look back at this Patriots team and how they'll age over time, is like these weapons are not good. Like Mac
No,
Hollins was your number one receiver. Like
he was like the
you had,
4 on the Bills last year.
yeah, you have Stephon Diggs, who is 2 years removed from an ACL sprain, who's 33 years old and just got broken up with by Cardi B during the Super Bowl. You have Ramondre Stevenson, Pop Douglas, who is probably, if he had gone to the Seahawks, he would have been like their fifth receiver for them this year. Any other team, he's probably like a top three receiver at best. Like this team, as far as like like Super Bowl teams, their roster was not there. They were 1 year removed from being 3-14. Amazing what they did this year, but the receivers are not there. Their running game, Travion Henderson's a year away from being what he can be, and their offensive line has a long way to go. That being said, though, like if I'm a Patriots fan, I'm super happy about how this year went. I'm super happy about the fact that they made it all the way to the Super Bowl and proved that they can get there. But you need an offensive line and you need like actual weapons. Let's go back to like having Aaron Hernandez, Gronk, and Randy Moss on the team. Like Drake May is not Tom Brady. Get him like actual weapons in the offseason and see what happens. Because this offensive, like the weapons that we have for the Patriots, when we go and rank these last 10 Super Bowls, they very well easily have the worst receivers of any of the Super Bowl teams that are going to be mentioned when we rank them.
Yeah, and like people point out like, oh, this is similar to the Rams Super Bowl with Jared Goff, with how he struggled in the Super Bowl. The difference was he had a wide receiver trio. He had Brandon Cooks, Cooper Cup, and I believe Robert Woods was still on the team. He didn't have Todd Gurley, but he still had a solid running back. I believe it was Cam Akers still. Don't shoot me if I'm
It's
wrong.
Todd Gurley.
But yeah, he still had Todd Gurley there. He was mostly on the sideline because his knees kind of were shot at that point from having two of the greatest running back seasons of all time. But you still go back to some of the Super Bowls where some of these players struggled, and they had much worse teams. And also, Peyton Manning took how long to get into the Super Bowl? Like, it took
8 years.
Josh Allen how long to get to the Super Bowl? Oh,
Still working on it.
still working on it. And then Joe Burrow was the second most sacked quarterback of all time in the playoffs. The difference is he had Jamar Chase and T. Higgins with this
And
one.
Tyler Boyd.
And Tyler Boyd, yeah. And then he had Joe Mixon in the backfield as well. But him, like, going up against Aaron Donald with a bad offensive line in the Super Bowl, it's just too much to overcome, especially against a really good defense. I saw how the Rams struggled against the Seattle Seahawks defense in the fourth quarter. I'm like, yeah, I don't think the Patriots are going to be able to get it done this year. And people want to jump all over them. Like they were even supposed to be here. Like this team was playing with house money all season. The fact that they made the playoffs was a huge success. No one thought they were going to win a playoff game. No one thought they were going to beat the Texans. And then a lot of people, even with Stidham playing, picked the Broncos to beat them. So the fact that they got this far, it's disappointing for a lot of people because they would have rather have seen the Bills, but they just weren't good enough to get to the Super Bowl this year. And it's really just unfortunate that Bo Nix wasn't in this game, because if Bo Nix didn't get injured, you probably beat the Patriots. Patriots have a nice run to the conference championship, eerily similar to how Josh Allen made it up against Patrick Mahomes and then lost in his third year of his career. And then you kind of go that you see the weaknesses on the offensive line, you get some more weapons, and then you're right back at it next year. And then with Bo Nix, though, if he's playing up against Seattle, he's an Oregon quarterback, and everyone from Washington already hates him. They already think he sucks. A lot of people from Oregon were the ones kind of driving the hate train, where people from Washington just don't like Bo Nix. So you could have had an Oregon quarterback going up against the Seattle Seahawks and then beating them in the Super Bowl potentially, because I do feel like Denver versus Seattle probably would have been a pretty even matchup, and definitely I think Denver would have been able to do a little bit more on offense than New England was able to.
I agree, and I think Bo Nix, he got a rough shake, getting injured the last play. Like that's brutal. The Patriots, with the way that they were moving the ball against the Broncos in the AFC title game, with even just with what they had with Jared Stidham, they almost won that game. Had they kick a field goal, I think Bo Nix could have easily gotten at least another field goal, but I think honestly at least another touchdown or two. That's probably a 10-point swing right there. So I agree there. I think Bo Nix is there. They make it. We're talking about the Patriots a lot less aggressively. A lot of people want to bury them for what they've done, and we've talked about what that means for them, but they made it. They did great. But I also think this is an indictment on the Seahawks. Like, they're calling it the dark side, this Seahawks iteration. They desecrated the Rams when they faced each other. They killed the San Francisco 49ers when they faced. And they've been just kind of a buzzsaw all season long. You've got the Reek Wallens of the world, who we've been very high on in the past. Devon Witherspoon. You drafted Nick Amonowari to fill in what DK was, and he's been excellent for you. You get 6 sacks against Drake May in the Super Bowl. Like, this Seahawks defense is no joke, and they could very well be here again next year going back to back. And then for the offense, like, Kenneth Walker just played the greatest game of his life. He had the most rushing yards outside of Terrell Davis in the Super Bowl. He ran all over them. Sam Darnold, who everyone was expecting to turn into a pumpkin, played a pretty solid game. It wasn't his best game, but he played well. Cooper Kupp emerged from the shadows. He played a good game. So, like, this also is an indictment on the Seahawks. Christian Gonzalez contained JSN to quite some extent. They contained Rashid Shaheed, but Kenneth Walker was just the glue, and then the dark side, they were just the better side of the ball.
Yeah, and you forget important shout out, but that's nothing new because everyone forgets about kickers. But how about Jason Myers, who led the league in scoring this year, and then also bringing that trend into the playoffs, where he's now set the record for the most points by any kicker in a Super Bowl of all time. They finished with 29 points. They get the pick 6 for the touchdown, but he had a busy day kicking field goals. He had 17 points for the Seattle Seahawks in this one, and he was the one kind of keep them stable because, you know, it is the Super Bowl, and he had ice in his veins. He was perfect in this one, and even though there are some short kicks, we've seen kickers in the Super Bowl choke before, and they can be the reason why you lose. And when you don't mention the kicker's name, it's usually because they did a really good job and won you the game, and now he leads the NFL in scoring this year, and then he also sets the record for being the highest scoring kicker of all time in a Super Bowl. So also shout out to him. Then also shout out to maybe one of the biggest, most interesting comeback stories in NFL history. The Rams were telling Cooper Kupp to retire. They're telling him to go home. They were begging him not to come back and play this year. And who was the leading receiver for the Seattle Seahawks in the Super Bowl? Cooper Kupp. And you know why it was really important that they had Cooper Kupp in the Super Bowl? Jackson Smith-Njigba goes to the locker room for a solid portion of the second half in this game. And then Cooper Kupp steps up. He has 12 targets, but he gets 6 receptions, 61 yards for 10 yards, a catch, and a long of 23. So he played a solid game. And then also shout out A.J. Barner at tight end. He was a beast for them. He had some critical third down pickups. I believe he got 2 third down conversions for them. And then he had 4 catches, 54 yards, 13 yards a carry. That one play where he was blocking just slipped out, got the first down, helping ice the game for them. So definitely a huge game for him. And then Sam Darnold just leading the Seahawks in the playoffs. It's crazy that he led the league in turnovers this year in the regular season. He had 20 turnovers, the most in the NFL. So when the Seahawks were in the playoffs, that's why a lot of people were concerned about them, myself included. Like, okay, what is Sam Darnold going to do in the playoffs? Well, how many turnovers did he have in the playoffs? 0. And the fact that he was able to step up in such dramatic fashion when you look at his draft. He's from the 2018 draft of Lamar, two-time MVP, Josh Allen, one-time sympathy MVP receiver, and then Baker Mayfield. Probably, I think Baker Mayfield was one of the best Browns quarterbacks of all time. People are talking about him being the number one overall pick. And now Sam Darnold is the first one to make and win a Super Bowl. And then he honestly, in the playoffs, has looked better than either of those guys have ever looked at any point in a consistent playoff run where he outduels Matthew Stafford, plays a solid game versus the 49ers, and then he has the prototypical, game manager, but a little bit extra type of game in the Super Bowl where he's still making game winning plays.
And he also becomes the first quarterback in NFL history to win a Super Bowl playing for 5 different teams. So that's also a big thing. If you want to talk about like comeback stories, and I feel like some that are going to be remembered like forever, the lasting memory of this Super Bowl is going to be the greatest comeback story of any quarterback in NFL history. And really, like the only guy that you can really, the only person I can think of when I think about this is like Kurt Warner winning a Super Bowl because of what he went through with being a grocery store clerk. They ended up making a movie about Kurt Warner. Well, someday they're going to make a movie about Sam Darnold and how he was this top prospect. He almost went first overall to the Browns, and then the Jets take him, tanks his career. His quarterback, the guy that was supposed to be his head coach, Adam Gase, ruins his mechanics. Adam Gase is now the assistant coach of the Chargers now, coming back from the dead. And then he goes to Carolina, another laughingstock organization. He sucks there, but then stays behind in San Francisco, goes to Minnesota. They don't want him in Minnesota after he brings them to 14-3, goes to Seattle, and then he wins. And as far as like storylines, as far as like comeback stories, does it get any better than Sam Darnold's comeback story? Because even this Super Bowl game, when we were predicting it, I didn't think he was going to do it. I didn't believe in him, even the last game of the season. So, like, hats off to Sam Darnold. He's in a different class. I think now with the Super Bowl, if he continues with how he's been, you can put him in that Kurt Warner conversation now, and I think that's very fair. Kurt Warner had a very respectable career. He's a Hall of Famer. Sam Darnold's on the trajectory of a Kurt Warner.
Yeah, no, he's on the trajectory of a Kurt Warner, and it's just going to be interesting if he does continue to go out there and have playoff success, and he didn't turn it over at all in this playoff run, then people are going to take a look at that 2018 draft in a completely different right. And this was probably, even though it wasn't the best Super Bowl, it was probably Colin Cowherd's favorite Super Bowl he has ever seen, because he was the one saying that Baker Mayfield isn't quarterbackial. What I like is Sam Darnold, professional, comes from a good family. I've been following him from high school, and now he was a USC Trojan. He's the first Trojan to ever win a Super Bowl, and now in the NFC, we're going to have Trojans going head-to-head for the foreseeable future with him and Caleb Williams. So if he's able to have a consistent run with the Seattle Seahawks and then get back to a Super Bowl, it'll be interesting if Lamar or Josh Allen never win a Super Bowl. If you go back and redraft it, well, you kind of look at his career, there's a little bit of a gap at the beginning, but he was able to solidify himself now, and he's kind of sitting on top of that draft. Well, Josh Allen and Lamar are making more money than him. He's already accomplished more team-wise than both of those players.
Yeah, absolutely. And like those guys have the accolades, but he's going to have the guy that had the greatest comeback story ever. And I feel like even the start of the season, we might have pointed to Baker Mayfield as that comeback guy after what Cleveland did to him. But now you have Sam Darnold. Not only was he resurrected in Minnesota, and he played excellent in Minnesota last year, but then they don't even want him after how great he played that 1 year. He goes to Seattle. And honestly, like with the Seattle team, they have a super young core with Tariq Woolen, and they have Devon Witherspoon, Nick Marawani, Boye Mafe. Like this Seahawks team could very well go back in the next 2 or 3 years, and Sam Darnold potentially wins a second ring. And from there, now we have a very interesting conversation with Sam Darnold, because I think he's a better quarterback than Eli Manning. Is he going to be in a higher regard than Eli? With 2 rings, he'd be in a higher conversation than Kurt Warner. And now we're talking about like Hall of Famer Sam Darnold at that point. with this Super Bowl ring, his Hall of Fame chances, in my opinion, skyrocket dramatically. You can't win a Super Bowl and not be immortalized in NFL history, especially with his story. So that alone, like I think with this, he could be in the Hall of Fame, especially if he continues on the trajectory that he's on with Seattle.
Yeah, he would have to put in another solid 10 years of work, I think, to get to the Hall of Fame. Because Eli had kind of a rough career where
176.
he led the league in turnovers 3 times, and he was passed over for the Hall of Fame this time. But if Sam Darnold is able to go out there and have a solid 10 years of work with the Seattle Seahawks and maybe get back to another Super Bowl, I could definitely see it. People need to see that it's not just a Nick Foles type of fluke with him, but it is interesting. He went to Minnesota last year, goes 14-3, and then goes to Seattle, and then has this much success. And Seattle's defense, a lot of people are saying it was really good. However, I think it was a combination of the Patriots' offensive line being bad, and then also like the Seahawks have had times where their defense can be had and they give up big plays. Like even with the Patriots' offense lacking talent, there were still some plays there that Drake May left on the table, and or Hunter Henry dropped a pass. You had a receiver drop a pass, or they were able to just rush 4 all game, where you're not necessarily going to be able to do that. However, I think with Sam Darnold, his contract is going to give you a great chance going forward because you signed him to 3 years, $100 million. And no one was more upset about this than Justin Jefferson, who went on a press tour about how unhappy he is with JJ McCarthy. Essentially, I don't know if you saw
Yeah.
all those interviews where he was like, "Well, do you still think you're the best receiver in the league?" And he was like, "Yeah, look who's throwing me the ball. I'd have games where I'd only have like 7 yards receiving. So what else am I supposed to do here?" And you could kind of see he was visibly upset that Sam Darnold was gone and in the Super Bowl with another team.
Yeah, and understandably so, especially with JJ Justin Jefferson and what he can bring and how bad 9 was this year. So definitely an interesting sight. But Sam Darnold, he's etched himself in immortality. I also want to talk about Kenneth Walker as well. We talked about it. He wins the Super Bowl MVP, and his run with what he did this postseason, he ends up with 38 games. He has 313 yards, 4 touchdowns. He gets another 100 on the receiving game as well. But Kenneth Walker having one of the best running back playoffs in NFL history and having the most rushing yards since Terrell Davis in the late Broncos Super Bowls as well.
Yeah, and those are very run heavy teams as well. And this was one of those games where you can just turn around and give it to Kenneth Walker. And you kind of saw vintage Le'Veon Bell in this game, except it seems like he has more power and more strength. He's like a hybrid of Le'Veon Bell and some of the best things we've seen from Marshawn Lynch. And feels like Kenneth Walker's been around for a while now, but he's still only 25 years old. He had a couple of rough injuries. He's been in and out of the lineup, but it's really cool to see him be this dominant in a Super Bowl game where to a lot of people he was kind of one of those guys you take in fantasy maybe, but he's never necessarily your top choice, and he was a 1-2 punch with Zach Charbonnet, and then as soon as Charbonnet goes out, they give him full control of the offense, and then he dominated the San Francisco 49ers, had a really good game versus the Rams, and now he just carried you in the Super Bowl and takes all the pressure off Sam Darnold. And talk about the difference between Minnesota and Seattle for someone like Sam Darnold. It's Kenneth Walker, because in Minnesota they don't have a run game. They don't have a good offensive line. So that's why you saw kind of the meltdown at the end of the year versus the Rams and against the Detroit Lions, where they were able to rush the passer. They didn't really have a great rushing attack. You're relying on Aaron Jones, who's in the twilight of his career right now, versus a player entering his prime at 25 years old, having the best runs of his life. And he also wasn't necessarily a bell cow all season long, so he still had juice at the end of the season in the Super Bowl to be able to do this.
Yeah, and Kenneth Walker, like you mentioned the injuries, he's rushed for 1,000 yards twice. He hasn't been like this amazing running back feature, My biggest comp, I would say, to Kenneth Walker, and in another sport, he reminds me of Jamal Murray, equivalent in the NBA, where he's a really good player at his position, but he's undervalued. And that's kind of how Kenneth Walker is. And when we look at his running back draft, the Seahawks were pretty bummed when they couldn't get Breece Hall in that draft because he came shortly after him. And then he was in between Breece Hall and James Cook. And so, like, when we look at, like, the running back class of 2022, there's, like, the Kyron Williams of the world, Tyler Algiers, James Cook, Breece Hall. Kenneth Walker, with what he did, being a Super Bowl MVP, immortalizing himself. And I also think, like, with what he did this postseason, we got to give him credit for, but also, like, what Zach Charbonnet sacrificed all season long. Them being the bell cows, having those split back committees, I think also helped them quite a bit. But Kenneth Walker, I've always loved him. I thought he was going to be an absolute freight train with Seattle this year, and he was to some extent, but saving his energy for the postseason and having the run that he did, this is going to be something that's immortalized in NFL history for that.
Yeah, now the interesting thing for Seattle, they have Kenneth Walker win Super Bowl MVP. They have a really solid year, and Clint Kubiak confirms he is going to be the Raiders' next head coach. So that leads to the question of how much of this offense is Clint Kubiak, and will this offense struggle a little bit next year because now you have to replace the offensive coordinator. We've seen this happen in Detroit. Detroit never won a Super Bowl, even though they had a chance to make the Super Bowl when they lost to San Francisco. But, offensive coordinator leaving a team after the Super Bowl, that's typically not a recipe to be guaranteed to get right back to the Super Bowl. So I do think the Seattle Seahawks can get back. I believe in Mike McDonald as far as someone who can draft on defense. So as long as they hit on a few more studs in the draft defensively, you probably need another edge rusher because how much longer does DeMarcus Lawrence have in the tank? Was this his last hurrah? And then also you have Williams on your defensive line who's been around for a minute as well. So you're going to have to replace an edge rusher probably in the draft and then get another solid defensive tackle. And then how is losing kind of the tone setter on offense going to be for Mike McDonald? So that is really what I'm curious to see for the Seahawks team.
Yeah, and I think Clint Kubiak, that's a home run hire for the Raiders. They're going to lose everybody you mentioned. Kenneth Walker is also a free agent. And after what he did in the Super Bowl, I highly doubt he's going to stay in Seattle and have that split back committee that he's had with Zach Charbonnet the last few years. So, like, they're going to lose Kenneth Walker, who was kind of like the lifeblood for you. If I'm a team like Tennessee and wants to get a real running back at a pretty fair price, you have all this money, Kenneth Walker to Tennessee feels very likely there. Or if they can get it at a reasonable price, maybe the Lions give him a call. He's originally from Michigan, so maybe he gets the call there. But Kenneth Walker's going to be gone. That's going to be a gap there. They're going to need to replace him. They have some older players on that defense. Will they stick around? And then obviously like the Super Bowl hangover, which is a real thing. And they had a lot of breaks. They faced the Niners that were beat to shit. They had some good calls go their way in the NFC title game. And then by the time they reached the Patriots, who also had a bunch of breaks, like they just were the better team, but they did have some breaks to get to where they are, to end up being the number one seed and getting through the playoffs. So can they get back? Yes, but how are they going to do that is the question.
Yeah, so I wouldn't say either of these teams is a lock to get back to the Super Bowl. And for the Patriots, there's a very concerning stat. Of the 33 quarterbacks to lose in the Super Bowl, only 6 have made it back, and only 3 have ended up winning a Super Bowl after losing in the Super Bowl on their first attempt. And I don't think a quarterback who has made the Super Bowl and lost in their second year has ever made it back, a la Joe Burrow, Dan Marino.
Yeah, I think what year did Jalen Hurts make it? Was it Jalen Hurts one of those guys? I know Jalen Hurts was one of the 3, but I don't know what year he made it. But he's the only like recent example I can think of somebody who lost and then came back and won. But other than that, like, good luck as far as the Patriots, because you have the Chiefs, who are the sleeping giant that nobody wants to talk about next year. You still have Buffalo, who's in the mix. You still have the Ravens, who just got Jesse Minter. You still have the Bengals and what they can do. You still have the Jaguars who are emerging, the Chargers who are emerging. You have the Texans. If CJ Stroud can figure it out next year, they're still there. Plus everybody else, I feel really confident about the Titans over the next 2 or 3 years that they can get the right team around Cam Ward. So like this year the Patriots had a lot of breaks, but next year their schedule gets a lot harder. Are they going to be legitimate or are they going to be like a one season wonder? And just because the Patriots have been successful over the last 25 years and they're a well run organization, doesn't guarantee that they're going to be winning Super Bowl after Super Bowl. This was their moment. They didn't get it done. And there's no guarantee that they're going to be back anytime soon. And in fact, they might never be back again with Drake May. Drake May might not even be their guy at the end of the day. Come several years down the line, of course. He's the guy right now, of course.
Yeah, and it's interesting too because Mike Vrabel with the Titans, definitely not as good of an organization as the Patriots, but he had a quick turnaround there with Ryan Tannehill. He made Ryan Tannehill look pretty good, and they got to a conference championship with Derrick Henry and A.J. Brown, but they were never able to weather the storm. I do think Robert Kraft actually wants to win, though. He wants to see the Patriots break the record and get the most Super Bowls of any franchise, and then he probably wants to get 8 just so he has more Super Bowls than Tom Brady does as a franchise. So I do think that the Patriots will go out there and spend the money. It's just going to be Stephon Diggs is probably going to get arrested pretty soon because he's dealing with a lot of legal trouble. And then Matt Collins is good, but you still haven't been able to draft a lot of really good wide receivers. I know Kayshon Boutte has had his moments, but he's not just like one of those guys who's going to go out there, beat one-on-one coverage, and then win every single play and be an explosive player for you when you need it. He's one of those good system guys. He's probably a really great 3 on a Super Bowl team. And then Kyle Williams has showed some promise this year. But I think for this team, you really need to go out there, figure out the offensive line, draft the best tight end possible to go along with Hunter Henry, or maybe make a trade for someone like Cole Kmet in the offseason. If they want to go with Colson Loveland, you have some extra money to spend on Cole Kmet there. And then see if you can go out there, spend money on someone like Alec Pierce. I think is going to be someone that the Patriots are going to target in this offseason. So I do think the Patriots actually do have a better road to getting back to the Super Bowl than the Seattle Seahawks. It's just they haven't been able to figure out the wide receiver position really ever since Randy Moss. And then the players they have drafted at wide receiver has been like Julian Edelman, who's like someone who just was willing to go to work and put in the hours with Tom Brady. So I think Drake May like has that type of gear in him. And then also, how injured was Drake May in the Super Bowl? Like, I'm not making excuses for him, but he did take the needle before the game. His throwing motion hasn't really looked the same. Drake May usually misses high, and he's been missing low in a lot of these playoff games. So definitely something going on there as well. But I do think defensively, they'll still be a force over the next few years.
Yeah, their defense I think is going to be good. If you have Mike Vrabel there, what that defense can do, I believe in them. They do have, I believe, $100 million in cap space next year. Stephon Diggs is probably going to prison for what he's done, and he's not going back to New England, so that's a fact. Matt Collins is like your 4. You shouldn't rely on Matt Collins to be anything but that. If you can draft high enough or trade up enough to get someone like a Jordan Tyson, who I'm super high on in the NFL draft, that'd be awesome. But Patriots, like, they haven't drafted a successful receiver since their quarterback they drafted, Julian Edelman. Other than that, it's been the Malcolm Mitchells of the world, the Aaron Dobsons of the world. Just probably sign one. Or maybe, like, the Eagles are tired of A.J. Brown. Give up a second-round pick to get A.J. Brown, or a third-round pick to get A.J. Brown if you want. But I love the Cole Kmet shout. I think he's a perfect fit for New England. Maybe the Chargers don't want to pay Ladd McConkey. You can give Ladd McConkey a call. But I think they're in a better spot, but I think they're in a much more congested AFC, where the NFC, the teams that I'm high on are going to be the Eagles, the Bears, and then the Rams. Like, those are the teams I think they're ahead of them. The Niners when they're fully healthy. And then, yeah, other than that, like the Packers maybe with Jordan Love, but I think the Seahawks, if they make the right moves, they'll be in that mix again for the playoffs.
Yeah. And then we had the first MVP in over a decade to win that wasn't a number 1 or a number 2 seed in the NFL, where typically, like, if you win the NFL MVP, you're either the 1 seed or the 2 seed in your conference. Where Stafford winning it was kind of rare because he um, he had more touchdowns than Drake May. But when you look at you know, this thing called common opponents that NFL MVP voters don't understand, like the Keebler elf who's on ESPN, and Mina Kimes is trying to explain to him the schedule, how Stafford and Drake May played the same opponents, and there's over a 20-point QBR difference versus those common opponents, and people are trying to use the Super Bowl as a kind of indictment on Drake May. Like, okay, yep, this is exactly why, you know, Matt Stafford should have won the MVP. But you look at it, you can't be the MVP if one of your players is in the Offensive Player of the Year category, and you're not even the most valuable player on your own offense. Oh, sorry, you threw 3 touchdowns versus the Arizona Cardinals in the last week of the season to make sure you had really good stats this year, but you didn't even win your own division, and then he didn't even beat the Seattle Seahawks when he played them in the conference championship. And then that offensive line for Drake May, and everyone saw his weapons. Like, it's night and day what Drake May has versus Matthew Stafford, which is why he's more valuable, because I don't think that the Patriots win the division over the Buffalo Bills if you put Stafford on the Patriots this year, especially when you have Drake May gaining more yards than Matthew Stafford. I mean, when Stafford doesn't have a run game, when Devontae Adams missed some time, he still had Puka Nacua, but he struggled when Devontae Adams was out. He needs Devontae Adams and Puka Nacua when Drake May doesn't even have anyone as good as Puka Nacua, and then he had Blake Corum and Kyron Williams, and then he still has 2 solid tight ends, and then also Sean McVay is his head coach. Like, and then people are like, oh, this game is an indictment on Drake May. It's like, yeah, Drake May didn't play well in this game, but the fact that he was 23 years old, he was also in the Offensive Player of the Year category, and then he had a 20-point QBR difference versus their common opponents that they played each other, and a better record versus them. Like, that should be a different one, and I'm sorry that Matthew Stafford is your friend and you feel bad for him. But when the MVP narrative starts turning into, I feel bad for this guy and we need to cement his Hall of Fame legacy, then we've officially lost the plot, and this has become the Grammys, and it's not even a serious award show anymore. It's like, it doesn't matter anymore. They just devalued the MVP the past 2 years because Lamar had better stats than Josh Allen last year.
Yeah. Yeah, that's my biggest gripe is like everything you said I agree with. But like my biggest problem is Matt Stafford the MVP? Statistically, yeah, maybe he is. And the Rams were a top like they were great offensively, all of that. But like Puka Nacua, had he not missed time, is probably Offensive Player of the Year. He's the best receiver in the NFL currently, outside of maybe JSN. You have Devontae Adams, who's one of the greatest wide receivers ever. Period. End of sentence over the last decade. Kyron Williams is no slouch either. You have a good defense on the other side of you. And you have the best head coach in the last decade, the most influential head coach of the last decade, in Sean McVay, who made Jared Goff a Pro Bowler and MVP candidate back in the day. Did the same thing with Jimmy Garoppolo when he had to fill in for him. So, like, all of that can be said, and Matt Stafford can be MVP. My biggest beef with the MVP this year is the fact that it is a seniority award at this point. The fact that it's Matt Stafford has been deserving all of these years, and therefore he's the MVP. Josh Allen's the MVP because all of these years that he's been good, now it's the MVP this year. Like, no, we don't accumulate MVP votes over the course of several years. We accumulate MVP votes over the course of this year. Who is the most valuable player this year? You remove them from their team, they're not where they are. Drake May, you remove him, and you put in Josh Dobbs at quarterback for the Patriots, who's their backup, this team wins 6 games. You take Matt Stafford out and you put in Jimmy Garoppolo, this team probably wins 8 or 9 games. Maybe they're not as good as the 11-6 record that they had, but they're probably still in the playoffs, or they're fighting for the playoffs because they have all these helps around them. Who is going to be good with Kayshon Boutte and Pop Douglas and old Stephon Diggs? Like, more or less, like, unless if it's Mahomes, Maybe Matt Stafford can do it, but that team was way worse. And the worst part of it all is the fact that when they asked a Hall of Fame or MVP voter, in Dan Orlovsky, why he voted for him, the reason why he said so was because Matt Stafford was his teammate. That is disgraceful on so many levels. It doesn't matter whether you were his teammate or whether you were holding his jockstrap. None of that shit matters. Who is the most valuable player? I don't give a fuck. You got to take all of these emotions out of the way. You look at the stats, you look at the value, and that's who you determine who the most valuable player is. Dan Orlovsky should remove his MVP vote and never be allowed to vote in the MVP, or yet better yet, any MVP NFL award ever again. What he said was disgraceful, and what his reasoning was for winning the MVP, with how close the MVP was, this is a disgrace. What a disgrace. Dan Orlovsky, you should be banned from the NFL awards forever.
Yeah, no, he should definitely be banned, and he didn't even understand what common opponents meant. When Mina Kimes was trying to explain to him, he's like, oh, well, you didn't talk about the schedule, and he wasn't listening to her because he's one of those classic people who only hears what he has to say and not what the person on his very show is trying to explain to him. And then when he's like, well, you didn't talk about the schedule, and she's like, no, I literally talked about the schedule, and the schedule didn't matter when Mike Vrabel won Coach of the Year. It didn't matter when Josh McDaniels won Offensive Assistant, when he won Assistant Coach of the Year either. It only mattered when it came down to Drake May. It didn't matter for Josh Allen last year, and Lamar Jackson had better stats. And this is 2 years in a row now where he's just said, well, I want to vote for this guy because he's my friend and I want him to be, and I have a bias against Lamar Jackson. I have a bias against Drake May. And the fact that he goes out of his way too to damage someone's reputation, like in the media as well, it's like, it's completely unexcusable that this guy has an MVP vote when he's this biased out in public. It's not like you're voting for someone for president, like, oh yeah, this is my friend. Like, no, you're affecting someone's career, you're affecting someone's longevity. And like, it's great that Matt Stafford won MVP and now he's a solidified Hall of Famer this year, but the fact that, as you mentioned, it turned into a seniority award, and it's just, oh, well, he's my friend. And then this is someone who can't even back up his takes, and when he gets any minor criticism or pushback on his takes, he has a meltdown on social media and says, sometimes this place is just terrible. And then even Pat McAfee called him out for his takes about Josh Allen. He went on the Pat McAfee show, and then he looked like a deer in the headlights when he got pushed back. He's like, people think I'm biased. Like, he's like, no, you are. And he said it directly to him. He's like, you were awfully quiet when he turned the ball over 4 times. You're like, oh, like, and then all you wanted to talk about is that catch that wasn't a catch and ended up being an interception, but you had nothing to say when the Bills had holding in the end zone and it should have been a safety. And then as soon as the Rams lose, instead of congratulations Seattle for making the Super Bowl, Matthew Stafford's the only person to put up the stat line and not make it to a Super Bowl. It's like, and then you have a meltdown when people point out that you're biased as well. It's like, if you're biased, just own it. And the problem is he does own it, and then he can't back up his takes, and then he has a meltdown. It's like, well, he's my friend, so I want him to win MVP. Like, okay, if I'm Roger Goodell, I'm like immediately like, nope, time to recount the MVP. And that is worse than the guy who voted for Justin Herbert, because I have no problem with that guy, because he clearly did it just to get famous, and it worked. Everyone was talking about the one person who voted for Justin Herbert the next day, and honestly, when you listen to his case, I think Justin Herbert's probably more valuable this season to the Chargers than Stafford was to the Rams. Even though he had better stats and he had better numbers, it didn't matter last year. So why does it matter this year?
My biggest gripe with Dan Orlovsky, everything I already mentioned with the friendship and everything else, it's the fact that he's not consistent with his takes. Everyone wants to make fun of Skip Bayless and how he acts and how he's ridiculous and some of his claims are outlandish, the way he supports certain players, waves his pom-poms. At least Skip Bayless is consistent. With Dan Orlovsky last year, it was all about schedule doesn't matter. Josh Allen's the most valuable player. Without them, the Bills are nothing. This year, when the schedule is clearly tilted in the favor of Drake May as far as easier schedule, now suddenly schedule is important because you don't like Drake May and you loved Josh Allen last year. Lamar Jackson had the 9th most touchdowns in NFL history last year. He's the only quarterback in NFL history to throw for 40-plus touchdowns and less than 3 interceptions and not win the MVP. Unlike the likes of Aaron Rodgers and Patrick Mahomes and Tom Brady, the only reason why Lamar didn't get it was because he had won the MVP the year before and would have been a 3-time MVP. That was the reason why. Because you're like, well, I don't want Lamar Jackson to have a 3-time MVP and Josh Allen hasn't won any. Maybe Josh Allen should have won the year before. It doesn't matter. Not my argument currently. The fact that you're not consistent with your takes and not exact with your reasoning. If next year it comes down to player A and player B, and player B has an easier schedule, and you're siding with them again next year, you have completely ruined the whole merit that is the MVP and what defines legacies. Because, like, Lamar Jackson, prime example again, he's a 3-time MVP. He's a first ballot Hall of Famer. Josh Allen, 0 MVPs. We look at his legacy a lot differently 10 years from now when we're determining whether he's going to Canton. MVPs, Pro Bowlers, Super Bowl champions, all these different things play a part in what makes somebody's lasting legacy. And Matt Stafford, is he deserving to be MVP? Absolutely. But the fact that, like, Drake May didn't get it because your buddy was in the MVP race, like, you have completely demoralized and completely discredited all that makes the MVP great and completely tarnished somebody's legacy potentially because of it.
Yeah, and who's to say that? I hate the argument that, well, Matt Stafford has had a long career and Drake May, he'll have time to win another MVP is what people say. But, like, if you follow the NFL, you know that's not necessarily true. Look at what Joe Burrow has been going through over the past few years. Has Joe Burrow
How about
had
Carson
time
Wentz?
to win an MVP? Yeah, Carson Wentz. He got injured when he was supposed to be an MVP. What about Derek Carr when he broke his back for the
Dante
Oakland
Culpepper?
Raiders at the time? And you talk about these guys like, oh, they'll have a chance. Like, not necessarily, because this is the NFL and you're one brutal injury away. And then if Drake May just gets to a Super Bowl, has a incredible year where he gets his team to the number 2 seed with virtually no help on offense. His number 1 weapon in the playoffs was Ramondre Stevenson, who had a huge issue with ball security at the beginning of the year. People were talking about cutting him. And then Stephon Diggs, who is going to jail. Mac Hollins, you want to talk about Mac Hollins? Mac Hollins was the 4th receiver on the Bills who would have fallen apart without Josh Allen last year, even though they had James Cook, who was the best running back in the league this year. And then, well, you could look at it, and if Drake May has a career-ending injury, is never the same again, he could still have an MVP on his resume, but you literally robbed him of that because, oh, no, it's my buddy, and he can't win MVP. Like, no one's ever going to take him seriously. Again, if people are like, oh, well, Dan Orlovsky has some good, like, takes where he's, like, breaking down film and whatever, and he has some good technical stuff. Like, you're still the guy that runs out of the end zone, and he's also the only commentator who's been caught farting on national television, not once, but twice. Like, he's that guy as well. Let's not forget.
Yeah, let's not forget that either. And the whole MVP argument is like, we can look at Carson Wentz. Carson Wentz was like 2 games away from being the MVP that year. I believe it was 2016. And then he gets hurt, and I believe they gave it to Tom Brady that year because of the run that he had post-Deflategate. But what happened to Carson Wentz shortly after? He got hurt. Nick Foles came into town. They had the Nick Foles Linsanity run, won the Super Bowl. And then shortly after, he's played for how many teams? He never has sniffed the MVP ever since then. We can look at Dante Culpepper of the early 2000s, who everybody was so certain was going to be this up-and-coming superstar that revolutionized the NFL. He had a few injuries. He was never the same guy. Or, not to get dark here, but let's use another very extreme example. A guy that could have been in the defensive player conversation back in the day, Ryan Shazier, who was a 2-time Pro Bowler before his injury, and now he can barely walk anymore because of that. Like, we should not be using, oh, he'll get there someday. Oh, he might not get there ever again. He might not be the MVP. He could tear his ACL next season, which I hope doesn't happen. And then when he comes back, he's not the same player. He fizzles out of the league. The average lifespan of an NFL player is 3 seasons. And if you're lucky, you'll play 10. And if you're really lucky, you'll play 15 to 20 and you'll be in the Hall of Fame. But, like, guaranteeing that he's going to be back because he's 23 is the most retarded take that you could possibly have. And of all people that we're going to listen to their take on the NFL, we're going to talk about the guy who is known for running out of the end zone for the worst team in NFL history. The first team to ever go defeated in the NFL season, and the worst quarterback of that class was Dan Orlovsky. He's the guy that's the brains of the operation. I'd rather hear what Mark Sanchez has to say, the guy that ran into his own player's butt, than hear what Dan Orlovsky has to say. This guy shouldn't be allowed to talk NFL. Yeah, at least he made it to the AFC title and he beat Tom Brady in the playoffs, which not many people can say they did. I'd rather listen to Butt Boy than listen to Dan Orlovsky, who's literally had one of the most retarded plays, crayon-eating plays in the NFL ever, all time. If you watch the 50 dumbest plays of all time, Dan Orlovsky's number 2 most likely, number 1 most likely. And he's the guy that's the brains of the operation. Give me a fucking break. And he's the one that's in control of legacies in the NFL. Well, I'm happy for Matt Stafford, and this isn't a Matt Stafford smearing campaign, but the fact that you voted for him for votes because of him being your teammate is outlandish. The fact that you were known for the winless Lions, like, get this guy out of the MVP conversation. You're tainting what the MVP should be. You're a disgrace.
Yeah, it would be different if it wasn't, the closest MVP race ever, where it came down to one vote, and it came down to Dan Orlovsky's vote. And the reason why it's such a big deal is it came down to him just voting for him as his buddy. He's responding to people on X like, we'll see who's right in the end. Like, no, it's not about being who's right in the end. It's about, like, actually getting it right and not voting for someone because they're your friend. Like, I don't understand how you don't think people are going to see you as a joke and a biased commentator because of that. And the fact that Mina Kimes wrecked his career so effortlessly, where you could tell he wasn't even trying to pay attention to anything she was saying, where she makes an argument about the schedule, he doesn't listen to it, and then he's like, you didn't say anything. It's like, I literally just did. And then you see how frustrated she is. Like, she easily ended his career so effortlessly over it. And the only reason why we're talking about it so much is because it came down to his vote. And the guy who voted for Justin Herbert, honestly, kind of has a point. And he has a point about how we should be thinking about the MVP, which is from a value perspective. There's a reason why stats aren't everything, because if Matthew Stafford was in fact the most valuable player, maybe he would have got a point versus the Seattle Seahawks in the fourth quarter. I don't know. Just a thought.
Yeah, I 100% agree. And the fact that the Chargers made the playoffs with how bad. I mean, we watched the playoff game. We saw the fact that of all his offensive linemen, they were all ranked either the worst or the second worst offensive line in all of football with each and every position. That offensive line is one of the worst offensive lines we will ever see in the NFL ever, arguably. Even the winless Lions probably had a better offensive line than what the Chargers were at the end. They were eviscerated. And the fact that they made the playoffs, and they didn't go very far against the Patriots, and they struggled. The fact that they made it there, and the fact that they were consistently winning games, despite the offensive line being the worst ever, arguably. You want to give Justin Herbert an MVP vote? Okay, I support. Whatever. You want to give a vote to Trevor Lawrence because this team that was been disappointing the last several years, you give him an MVP vote so he can have that for his legacy. He can say, I was voted MVP by this one guy this one year. All right, fantastic. There's some of the greatest NFL quarterbacks to ever play the game that never get an MVP vote. Russell Wilson, an example of that. A guy that can be a part of the top quarterbacks of the last 15 years has never had an MVP vote. But you know what? If we're going to give it to Justin Herbert and he can retire with an MVP vote, go ahead. I'm happy for it. He was valuable. He carried the team to the playoffs, and although they didn't win, he was still super valuable for him.
Yeah, how would Stafford do behind that offensive line? Someone who literally can't move.
Yeah, he would die, and he would be done. And Matt Stafford would be doing a memorial for him at this time.
Yeah, exactly. Give him the Patriots, switch him, put him on New England's roster in the Super Bowl. I really don't think that game plays out too much differently, to be honest, if you switch Drake May. And if you put Drake May on the Rams, I'd say the Rams still have a shot of being the Seattle Seahawks, and I say that game probably plays out the same. And a lot of people were saying, well, maybe this wasn't the best Super Bowl of the decade. So, with that being said, we're going to go over the past 10 Super Bowls of the decade and see, is that true? Why are people saying it's the worst Super Bowl? Why is that?
Yeah, so let's do a blind ranking, and we'll start at the end. So for those watching, we're going to start 10 years ago at this point was the infamous 28 to 3 game. And that's the last. So 28 to 3 and on is what we're ranking with it. So I think what we should do is we'll start at the very beginning and we'll do a blind ranking of them all.
Okay.
The first one is 28 to 3. And I have this, I will write this all down. For me, if we're going to do it from 1 to 10, Super Bowl 50, like this is Super Bowl 51. This is the best Super Bowl ever, in my opinion. It doesn't get any better. Brady becomes the
Yeah,
GOAT. Yeah.
for me, that's tentative, number one. I'll just put like tentative over each position, then we can kind of put where we have everyone else. But for me, that would be number one. Brady wins his 5th Super Bowl. It's the best comeback in Super Bowl history. Yeah, and it's really the best experience for sports fans watching any game. Same as LeBron coming back from down 3-1, except no one needed to get suspended for Brady to win. Actually, Brady was the one who got suspended.
Yeah. And that also submitted him as the GOAT as well with that. I feel like that won his 5th Super Bowl when he did that. So I feel like this is what everyone was like, oh, he's the greatest quarterback of all time. He's not in a lock with Terry Bradshaw and Joe Montana anymore. Coming back there, like that was the GOAT game that we point to. So that's the next one. And then following that, we have the Nick Foles Super Bowl, 41-33. Just the highest scoring Super Bowl ever. Nick Foles. We have Brady's fumbled catch. We have the Philly special. Where would you rank this as far as the last 10?
I'm tentatively gonna put that at number 3 right now. I don't know if I would put it number 2. Just since I don't have all these off the top of my head, I think I'm gonna put it number 3 right now for Nick Foles. That was one of the highest scoring games of the Super Bowl. Pretty much, you had to score every time Brady fumbles at the end of it. And then we saw kind of just a magical Super Bowl where Nick Foles, who's a backup quarterback, steps in after MVP. Carson Wentz is having an MVP caliber season and then win that Super Bowl. You have Doug Peterson cement himself as a Super Bowl winning head coach, and then most importantly, Dan Sproles getting himself a ring in that one as well. So I love that Super Bowl. So I would put it number 3.
I think because I see what's in front of me, like I think 2 or 3 is fair. But I'm going to put it at number 2, just for I feel like there was not a single down moment in that game. Next is the Patriots Rams, 13-3. We got a spot at number 9. But it could be number 10. Like this was one of the most boring Super Bowls ever. The only reason why I don't think it's the worst is because we have Brady there. We have Todd Gurley. Is this going to be Sean McVay's first Super Bowl? There's narratives there that make it exciting. For that, I'm going to put it at number 9. I'll put Patriots Rams.
Yeah, I think we had the biggest age gap for any head coaches. Sean McVay making the Super Bowl at like 35 years old, 30,
Yeah.
35.
Yeah. And that was the last championship for the Patriots. And that was coming off of one of the greatest AFC title games ever with Pats and Chiefs. And
That was the
also,
overtime game.
yeah, and that was also the pass interference year as well for the Saints. So like I feel like the Super Bowl that year like was underwhelming, but also like the AFC and NFC title games were some of the most iconic ever. So like we're ranking
What
Super
pass
Bowls.
interference?
Yeah, that was the pass interference in Chiefs AFC title game. The offsides, D Ford call.
To what Jared Goff said. What pass interference? They didn't call anything. I don't know what you're
Yeah.
talking about.
Yeah.
Because we were supposed to get Breeze and Brady that year. So we were getting like the hype of either it was going to be Rams and Chiefs, which everyone thought this was the 54-51 game. I'm pretty sure that happened in the same season as this.
It was.
And,
Yeah, this is Mahomes MVP year.
Or we were going to get Brady and Breeze, and this is also proof that the NFL isn't rigged because we probably get the worst matchup possible in the Super Bowl. And really,
Yeah.
the storyline ended up becoming focused on the coaches. And, like, Brady didn't have a good Super Bowl either. I mean, the Rams were all over him in this one, but he did just enough not to lose. And then Jared Goff just missed Brandon Cooks wide open in the end zone where he just threw the ball way too late.
Yeah, but I put that at 9 because maybe there's one worse. And then the next one is the first Chiefs Super Bowl. This was against Jimmy Garoppolo. You have the missed Emmanuel Sanders play. The Chiefs coming back down from 10. I feel like this one, is kind of like the middle of the pack.
I was gonna say
This,
sixth.
yeah, 6 sounds fair. Mahomes' first title. Um, this is Super Bowl 54. I think there's better Mahomes Super Bowls in here. Um, so I'm going to put this one at number 6. I feel like there's worse, but there's also definitely better that belong there.
Yeah, I'd say the Eagles one is probably the best Super Bowl where he won.
Yeah, I would agree. One of them at least. And then following that, we have the 2022, which was the next was 2021. This is the Bucks Chiefs Super Bowl, the Brady versus Mahomes, and this game was a blowout. Mahomes, despite scoring 9 points, I feel like had one of the best losing games ever. Just with some of the plays that he made, like even though they didn't count. Like I remember this one play where he's running out and he throws it into the end zone. He throws this perfect ball to I believe Clyde Edwards-Helaire on like basically like in the sky, and the guy drops it. Like that game was insane. But for it being Brady and Mahomes, like this was a very underwhelming Super Bowl. So I'm gonna put it at like 8 because it was a blowout.
I'm gonna put it at 7 because it's when Brady got his 7th ring. And then he won with Tampa. Saw Rob Gronkowski get 2 touchdowns in this game. I believe Antonio Brown had a touchdown. This is what made an AB a Super Bowl champion. And then it also capped off one of the greatest quarterback runs of all time, where you have Brady coming in, winning in his first year with Tampa Bay in the COVID year where they were all on Zoom. They weren't in person, and then he beat Drew Brees, Aaron Rodgers, and Patrick Mahomes all in a row. And then Mahomes just didn't have his offensive line in this one. I believe he had 3 starters get injured versus Buffalo. But I will put it at 3 because I feel like for Super Bowl blowouts, it was an entertaining blowout. It wasn't as bad as when Philly just absolutely demolished the Chiefs last year.
Yeah, I can agree with that. And you also have like Mahomes and Brady there. I think I could put it at 7 confidently, but I don't think I could put it any higher. It's not better than the Mahomes and Jimmy G Super Bowl either,
No.
just for the fact that how close it was. Now after that, it's Rams and Bengals, and this is following. This is the 13 second year. This is the year the Bengals come back from I believe 22-3. It was a big comeback against the Chiefs. They beat them. They go to the Rams. This is the massive Cooper Cup year where he has the Triple Crown. And this is a good Super Bowl. And I remember watching this with you. My biggest beef with it is that it came down to flags at the end of the day. The Rams just not getting called for holding. It felt like this game of all the Super Bowls that we're going to go over, this one felt the most rigged for the Rams, getting Matt Stafford his ring. So I put this at 5.
Yeah. Also, it is the Rams have been the most favored teams by the refs over the past 5 years, I
Decade.
believe. And this game over the past decade with Sean McVay, and this game was kind of the solidification of that, where it seemed like anytime the Bengals did something, they would call it, where the Rams held on every single play of the last drive. And then the Bengals had some missed opportunities in this one, even though it was a pretty great game. I agree 5 is still good, though.
And then now we're going to the back-to-back Chiefs Super Bowls. So the Eagles Super Bowl was Super Bowl 57, and then 58 was them beating the Niners. So the first one they won, this one was 38-35, and then the Niners game was 25-22. Which one I would rank higher than the other? I feel like I would rank the Niners one above it, simply because it went to overtime. You have Kyle Shanahan making that foolish. Just I think he chose to
He
defer
forgot the
it.
rule.
Yeah, he
No, he
forgot the
chose to
rule.
receive.
Yeah, and like that Super Bowl, I went back and forth. I would put the Niners one just a little bit above the Eagles, but I feel like they're both comfortably for me at the 3 and 4. Because what's going to
Have
come
you
next?
seen that picture going around of Kyle Shanahan where it's like he's aged like Obama did when he was president? It's like 10 years later, and the guy looks like he's aged almost 30 years as far as being the head coach of the San Francisco 49ers.
That's what happens when you are next to a fucking radiation center at your stadium and everyone's getting injured. That's what happens. And then so where would you rank the Chiefs, like those two Super Bowls? I have them 3 and 4, and they're kind of interchangeable for me, but I just feel like for what's going to come next, like this just kind of feels like these are
Yeah,
fit pretty well there.
the Eagles one felt anticlimactic, so I would put the 49ers one higher just because it did go to overtime. Like, they pretty much scored every single time. And it just came down to Jalen Hurts fumbling, where I felt like there's a little bit more of a chess match going on. And then you had Brock Purdy and the 49ers and Christian McCaffrey in the Super Bowl, which I really liked. It was a rematch, but the Chiefs were able to put down the 49ers, so I do like the overtime one, and you rarely get overtime in the Super Bowl as well, where you kind of have a lot of drama going on. Where even though it was high scoring and entertaining for Chiefs and Eagles, it kind of just felt like, oh, yep, Chiefs did it, they won. Okay, cool. Where it
Well,
felt like the
also,
49ers had more parity.
they had like that hold on Juju, and I feel like that's what gives me like it was a late minute pass interference to basically put them in field goal range to win the game. And that's the thing for me. Like the ending was anticlimactic, but the game itself, like the Eagles, they were the juggernauts that year. So were the Chiefs. Like those were two juggernauts facing off, but the Chiefs Niners was more exciting. And then last year's Chiefs and Eagles blowout. This was a blowout that was just rough to watch. This one I'm putting at 8 because I have 8 and 10, and honestly, I feel like this Super Bowl was a little bit more enjoyable to watch because we're talking about the three-peat. We have the Eagles potentially getting their vengeance, or we could see like a three-peat there. So there's more at stake. There's more storyline there. So like Eagles and Chiefs, even though it was a blowout, I would put that over what we saw the Patriots and Rams do, and also with this most recent Super Bowl.
Yeah, and this one was kind of this recent Super Bowl was kind of melodramatic, and I felt like the 13-3 one did have a lot of hype going into it. Not a lot of people predicted that outcome. Where I kind of expected this Super Bowl to go this way, and this one was pretty predictable. Where you had some people picking the Patriots, but I just didn't see a way the Patriots were going to be able to score enough points, and Drake may have enough time to drop back in the pocket and hope that someone is up. So I agree at 10 there. So I had it. I think we had them ranked the same evenly, where 28-3, number one, 49ers, CMC versus the Chiefs, number two, Nick Foles, Brady, Super Bowl, number three, Chiefs losing or Chiefs beating the Eagles, number four, Rams and Bengals at five, Mahomes first ring at six, the Bucks at seven, beating the Chiefs, Chiefs Eagles last year at eight, 13-3, Rams at nine, and then Patriots Hawks at 10.
So I think we're at the same because I have 28-3, Nick Foles, Chiefs Niners, Chiefs Eagles, Rams Bengals, Mahomes first title against Jimmy G at 6, Brady Mahomes at 7, Eagles Chiefs 13-3, and then this most recent Super Bowl. So I actually have the if we stretch it out another 5 years, I just want like a yes or no. Which one would you pick over the Seahawks and Pats, and see if this is the worst one in the last 15? Broncos and Panthers, with the infamous didn't drop on the fumble, Cam Newton. Broncos, they get Peyton Manning another ring. Was that Super Bowl better than this Super Bowl with Darnold and May?
No, because it gave Peyton Manning a fraudulent Super Bowl where he couldn't throw the ball past 15 yards, and then it was also just sad seeing Cam Newton give up at the end of that Super Bowl. So honestly, I thought this one had more interesting moments where watching that Broncos Panthers Super Bowl, it was honestly painful, and you felt bad for Cam Newton because he was just getting beat up the entire game. And then Peyton Manning couldn't throw, and then he gets a second ring. So congrats, you beat the Bears, and then you beat Cam Newton and the Panthers after having one of the best defenses ever. So I do think this one actually had some better moments than that game.
Yeah, I think that one's a little more iconic, but maybe it just hasn't aged well enough for me. But you have the fumble, you have Von Miller MVP. That one's like that one. I think maybe it just because of time, it's aged a little bit better. We'll see how this ages, but for now, I think the other games that are going to come up next, I think they'll be worse. Patriots Seahawks, the first time, it's absolutely the first one was definitely better than this one. We have the Malcolm Butler touch interception. We have the Jermaine Kearse catch. Obvious, that one's better.
Yeah, that
And
one's
then
better.
and then Seahawks Broncos. Now we talk about the Broncos and Panthers. That's one that you might vote against, and that's fair. This blowout, this might be the biggest blowout in NFL history. However, watching Peyton Manning, the very first play have a snap go over his head, and for the rest of the game, the Seahawks are just driving and just crushing the Broncos. As a guy that grew up watching and facing against Peyton Manning, even though it's a blowout, that was one of the best Super Bowls for me to watch.
Yeah, it was satisfying too because I remember I was at like summer camp that year when he had the Ravens game and he threw 7 touchdowns. Everyone's, oh my God, Peyton Manning's unstoppable this year. He threw for over 50 touchdowns and 5,000 yards. This is the greatest quarterback season ever. And the fact that the Super Bowl went that so comically bad for him, I thought was hilarious. So this is
It's fitting.
honestly one of the most entertaining blowouts of all time. Especially you just have funny characters in that, like Richard Sherman, Earl Thomas, not Martellus, but Michael Bennett. Like you just have funny people like in that Super
Yeah,
Bowl too.
I would agree, and that's like the Legion of Boom right there. Like that's when the Seahawks are at the peak of their powers. And then the end they'll edit out. They have Ravens and Niners, the Harbaugh Bowl. I would put that above this one. Um,
That
and then we have
Super Bowl's just kind of cringe though. Oh, look at these two brothers. Who are their parents gonna pick to win the Super Bowl? And then the power goes out. Are you kidding me?
yeah,
Like the only reason why this was gonna be a blowout, and the only reason why the 49ers were coming back was as soon as the power went on, and then Joe Flacco's bedtime was an hour ago by the time they get the power back up and running. So it's like, yeah, it was a good Super Bowl at the end of it, but it wasn't gonna be if the power just stayed on. The Ravens had all the momentum in this one.
yeah. This one is iconic for that power outage though. And I forgot who was the halftime show. I can look, but I remember it being iconic. And then they have Patriots and Giants, the second one. The second one is a little bit more of a whimper, but you have the Mario Manningham catch. Eli officially becomes Tom Brady's kryptonite. Um, I think if we're looking at the last 15 Super Bowls, there's like maybe two that I could put below this Patriots Seahawks most recent Super Bowl, but of the last decade, that's definitely the worst.
Yeah, and then you go even the year before that, you have Ben Roethlisberger and Aaron Rodgers in the Super Bowl. That might be one of the best Super Bowls ever. And Packers and Steelers.
Yeah, Packers, and then we have the Cardinals and Steelers. If we zoom out even further, then we have Saints and Colts. That one was kind of a whimper, but we got Drew Brees' title. Like, I think it is a more underwhelming Super Bowl, just because it's not. There's not really any crazy headlines. It's like potential dynasty. Like this is one that if it ages well, the Patriots or Seahawks go back to the Super Bowl, it'd be great. But if both of these teams fizzles out, then this is going to go down as one of the most mediocre Super Bowls ever.
Yeah. For like context though, like over the past Super Bowl like champions for like quarterbacks though, for kids who are watching Josh Allen now, Peyton Manning's first Super Bowl would be like the equivalent of Josh Allen going to the Super Bowl against the Bears, and then Caleb Williams gets injured and he's playing up against Tyson Badgett.
Yeah, it's exactly what that is. Because I forgot who their I think they had Rex Grossman, but he got hurt, and so they
Yeah,
couldn't
he
even
got
play
hurt in
him.
the conference championship, and then Peyton Manning ends up playing the backup, and then you talk about like, oh, Drake may get to the Super Bowl, but it was against Jarrett Stidham. No one remembers that. All they remember is that you got to the Super Bowl and that you won it. And at the end of the day, that's going to be the most important. So say what you will about Peyton Manning. He was someone who kind of was known as a playoff choker and underperformer. However, like when he won his Super Bowls against the Bears and then the, you know, second Super Bowl he got to, he lost to Drew Brees, who played a better game than him. And then he lost in Denver against Seattle, where he got blown out. And then his last Super Bowl he won, he couldn't even throw the ball past 15 yards.
I do think that, yeah, like Peyton Manning is kind of like the Tom. He is kind of like the Josh Allen because he's had some playoff meltdowns. He's had some playoff moments that have crushed his heart. In the city of Buffalo, or I guess in that case, Indianapolis. And then in the Super Bowl, when he did make it, he got crushed, annihilated by the Seahawks. He had the Saints Bounty Gate Super Bowl, where it was kind of a blowout. And then they beat the Bears when he is facing their backup. And then when they face the Denver Broncos and Panthers, it's like it was the defense that won. Von Miller literally won MVP, and he could throw like screen passes, and that was it. And he couldn't move. Like, I don't know. Peyton Manning's overrated
Yeah, I
as far
remember
as
going
like
to that
playoff.
Super Bowl for like a party in 2009. So I was 8, and I remember that. And the people like were Patriots fans, obviously, so they hated Peyton Manning and they were going crazy. And they had like these 2 big German shepherds. So as soon as everyone started cheering, the dogs were also barking and howling. Everyone was having a good time. My brother had a deep fryer at the time, so he was making deep fried Oreos. So like
Cool.
that's like
There you go.
probably like a core memory is like as far as one of the first like major Super Bowls I remember. And then you have the iconic onside kick, and I I saw something about them. The NFL's considering getting rid of the onside kick and instead doing a 4th and 13. Did you see that?
No, but that's interesting. I mean, I'm kind of here for it. Nobody does the onside kick, and it fails so miserably. But like, if you're the Chiefs, if you're the Bears, if you're the Broncos, if you're all these teams with a great quarterback, converting on like 4th and 15, I feel like I'm here for it. That would be a great. I think that'd be better than what they do now. Onside kick is such a waste.
Yeah. No, it is, and it's so hard to like convert it. So I feel like there needs to be a better way to get the ball back, and it could make the games a lot more interesting. But then teams wouldn't try until the end of the game. They'd have a team like the Chiefs, like, okay, now it's time to try 4th and 13. You just complete them every single time and score. Then the other team can't get the ball back.
Yeah, I could see where that could be a problem. I don't think they should get rid of the onside kick, but give us another way to get the ball back. That's better than just kicking a ball barely above 10 yards and then hoping that it fumbles your way. Like, let's make it a little more exciting. Or maybe do like if you can make a field goal that's 65 yards, then there you go. You can
Yeah.
get the ball back.
Yeah, because we were like going over the Super Bowls, and like this one's like number 10 out of all of them. And the regular season this year was good, and there were a lot of good games and good moments, but it felt like it really didn't get going until November. And a lot of the quarterback stats were down. I think part of that is due to the kicking rules, where you just automatically get the ball at the 35 now if it goes into the end zone. So with that, you're essentially taking off 15 yards each drive from the quarterback, or 10 yards, where I think you can do a little bit of a reversal with the NFL, where you get rid of the stupid 45-yard penalty, and then if you can kick the ball out at the 1 yard line, you can actually do like a death corner kick on like the kickoff. And I think that would make it a little bit more interesting, where we're giving all of these advantages to the offense, where if it does go into the end zone, sure, you get at 35-yard line, but if we can get it out at the 1, it's not a penalty anymore. And I think that should be the move that the NFL should make next season.
Yeah, I'm down for that. Or even if it's the 5 yard, like within the 5 yard line, give them some wiggle room. Like, I don't know. I'm here for that arc. I think that'd be a fun way to make it a little bit more balanced towards the defense. Because over the last 15 years, it's been different pass interference calls. It's been catch rules going their way. Like, everything's gone on the offensive side of the ball, and there hasn't been any get back to the defensive side of the ball. Now that we're seeing Mike Vrabel win Coach of the Year, we're seeing defense kind of have a renaissance. now is the time to make those changes.
Yeah. So I would say that's a good way. And then if you're a quarterback, just think of it like, well, it's 30 more yards each drive. That could be on your stat sheet. And then the defense, we could see more safeties. And honestly, one of my favorite plays in the NFL is seeing a safety. So if we see like an uptick in safeties and then you have to immediately give the ball back, then you actually do see an uptick in offense because then you have to punt the ball back to them after getting a safety. So then if you're a good defense, you can convert a lot of those kickoffs into safeties. Then you can also turn it into points on offense too. So I think it's a win-win, and that would be a good way to balance the tables with offense and defense because we've seen plenty of times like the Bills got pinned when the Jaguars missed it on their fourth down play in the playoffs. They took the ball, go all the way down to the end zone, and then get a touchdown. So it's like it's
Yeah.
not undoable.
Yeah, and if you're a good offense, you can do it. But that being said, like we kind of recapped the last 10 Super Bowls. We put this one at the bottom, but let's recap like just this is kind of the end of the NFL season. Let's recap how each of these teams are, giving a thumbs up, a thumbs down, or a sideways on how their season fared. Just doing a comprehensive breakdown. Do we start AFC or NFC?
Let's start with the winning conference. Let's start with the NFC.
All right, and division-wise, where do we start here?
Let's go the worst one, the South.
Okay. So, Carolina Panthers, thumbs up, thumbs down, their season and what we expected. For me, it's got to be a thumbs up. You almost beat the Rams in the playoffs. Your record was exactly what I predicted come beginning of the season. Bryce Young took a step forward. Tedero McMillan emerged. Your defense looked a lot better than it did last year. So, thumbs up for the Panthers for me.
Yeah, I'd say thumbs up for the Panthers for me as far as how they did this season. We'll probably go through all the teams next week and preview their offseason, how we feel about them. But just for this year, reviewing them, you did exactly what I thought you would do. You concerned a lot of people, started out slow, however, you were able to weather the storm. And then Ted McMillan came alive, and then you also got a little bit of a run game as well. You saw Rico Dowdle have some explosions, and then Chuba Hubbard took the reins. And then Bryce Young had a really solid playoff appearance and almost beat the MVP in Matthew Stafford at home. So definitely a solid season for the Panthers.
And then we have the Bucks, and honestly, I'm going to give it a thumbs down. I understand they got banged up, but you had Baker, you had Bucky Irving, you had Mike Evans get hurt. Like everyone got hurt in the Bucks, so it's not really their fault. But you started off, I believe, 5-2, and you ended 8-9. A little bit on a whimper. Didn't make the playoffs, so I got to give them a thumbs down because it feels like they're regressing and going the wrong direction.
Yeah, I will give them a thumbs down, but I will put a Band-Aid on it for the Tampa Bay Buccaneers. Get a little bit of sympathy, but if this is going into next season and then we still have another year like this where we're kind of middle of the pack, start fast in September and October, and then we're that early season merchant, that's definitely not a good sign, especially if you want to be competing late into the year. So thumbs down, extra Band-Aids.
All right, and then we have the Falcons, and honestly, I'm going to give them a thumbs down as well. This is a team that, had they beaten the Jets, they would have made the playoffs, but they couldn't beat the Jets, who, spoiler alert, they're going to get like 30 thumbs down, but we'll talk about them later. But the Falcons, you couldn't beat the Jets. You have arguably the best running back in football with Bijan. You have Drake London, who's a stud. You have Kyle Pitts, who did something this year and was like actually good. Had one of the biggest fantasy games ever in a playoff game, fantasy playoff game. So like, your team is good enough to be better than 8-9. So thumbs down for me.
Yeah, 2 thumbs down. All you needed to do was beat the Jets, and you couldn't do it. I mean, at this point, if you're the Atlanta Falcons, I guess it's a good thing that you got Kevin Stefanski as your head coach, but overall, what a failure this season. You were supposed to win the division. 2 thumbs down for the Falcons. Horrible.
Horrible. But you know who I'm going to give a thumbs up to is the Saints, because we didn't expect them to be good. They won 4 straight games at one point. They were expected to be the worst team in football, and they finished 6-11. They have their quarterback, and they have weapons around him. Chris Olave is a stud for them. Juwan Johnson's emerged as a good tight end. And they have Kellen Moore, who's been good for them. So they got to get a thumbs up. They did a lot better than I expected them to be.
Yeah, absolutely. Thumbs up. I was skeptical as Kellen Moore as a head coach. However, kind of saw Philadelphia Eagles offense struggle this year. They weren't the same team without him. And then with Tyler Shuck, he led the league in fourth quarter passing yards in December, led some clutch comebacks for the New Orleans Saints, is able to do it a little bit with his legs. So thumbs up. And they played some entertaining football at the end of the year. So I respect this team for playing all the way until the end of it, even though they weren't playing for much.
All right. Well, let's go in the division of the champions themselves. Seahawks have to get the golden thumb. You won the Super Bowl. Doesn't get any better than that.
Well, I thought they could have been better, so I'm gonna. No, I'm
Yeah.
just kidding. Thumbs up.
And then the MVP Rams. I'm giving them a sideways, to be honest. Like, I could give them a thumbs up. They had a good season. You have the MVP, Offensive Player of the Year candidate, but quite honestly, like, you didn't look good against the Panthers, and then the Seahawks, they took care of business for you. For what you are and how good your team is, you should have made it further. So yeah, I'm gonna give them a sideways.
I'm giving them a thumbs down. For me, it was Super Bowl or bust for the Rams. The reason why you weren't in the Super Bowl is because you didn't win the division and you struggled against teams like the Atlanta Falcons heading into the playoffs, and then the Bears almost beat you. What I'm going to remember from the Rams playoffs this year is going to be that Cole Kmet touchdown, Bryce Young having a breakout game in the playoffs, and then Seattle beating you at the end of it. I'm not going to remember too much about what the Rams were doing. And for me, this year, it was Super Bowl or bust because I had them ranked as the best team in the NFL midway through the year. You fell off at the end of the regular season, didn't even win your own division, and then you didn't score any points in the fourth quarter. So for the Rams, this season was a failure. Super Bowl or bust, and you didn't get there.
I like that. Yeah, that's fair. You are right about the playoffs. Like, we're going to remember all of these games for what the other team did. Bryce Young, Caleb Williams coming out party, and then Sam Darnold beating him in the conference championship. Like, all of the games are memorable, but for the wrong reasons. So I'll change mine to a thumbs down as well. And then the Niners, I'm going to give them a thumbs up, but I'm going to make sure that I wrap it in bubble wrap first because we don't want to break that good old thumb of ours. The Niners, 12-5. The fact that they had, like, I think it was 75% of their team on IR at some point, like, absolutely eviscerated with injuries, but they were able to win a playoff game and advance further. So got to give them a thumbs up, but let's make sure that we wrap it real good.
Yeah, for me, the 49ers get a thumbs up. And for me, like this season, they were essentially the wet bandits. It's like, how did you go through all of those traps and survive with any players in the playoffs? So it was impressive that the 49ers were even there. They had some of the most injuries of all time. Tom Brady said that their team bus should be an ambulance. So it's like you survived Macaulay Culkin's traps and somehow you didn't die. So congrats, I guess.
Yeah, and then the Cardinals. I'm giving you 9 thumbs down because that's how many games you ended on. 9 consecutive losses. Who took the bus? The Cardinals back to their town of mediocrity. So give me the Cardinals at 9 thumbs down. Pathetic.
Yeah, you're paying Kyler Murray top tier quarterback money, and he wasn't there all season. Really, didn't seem like he was too interested. There's even players warning the Jets about taking Kyler Murray, saying that maybe it's not the best decision to trade for him, even though it'd be hilarious if the Jets did it. But yeah, thumbs down. Your coach got fired, complete failure, and then you were calling for Jacoby Brissett to start next year. Yikes! That's not a
Good
good
luck with
sign.
that. All right, and then let's just go over to the North here. Um, 2 teams made the playoffs out of this mix here, all of them with a winning record. But we'll start with the worst of them all, the Lions. And with where they were last year, making the conference championship and being competitive, I'm giving them a thumbs down. They were just not. They lost a bit of their aura. Ben Johnson's gone. Aaron Glenn is gone, and they're not the same team. I hope they rebound, but this was a tough year for them. I got to give them a thumbs down.
Yeah, thumbs down as well. The Detroit Lions kind of solidified themselves as more of a Atlanta Falcons type team with Matt Ryan through the years, where maybe you'll get to a conference championship, you have a chance of getting to the Super Bowl. Maybe Jared Goff will win MVP at some point if all the cards fall right and people just feel bad for him. Maybe he'll get
Or
one of
his
those
teammates
legacy
with Dan
seniority
Orlovsky.
awards. Yeah, maybe one of his teammates. who is his backup quarterback, will vote for him just because they felt bad. So yeah, they kind of solidified themselves as not a Packers or Patriots or Chiefs or Eagles type team. They're more just kind of what the Falcons were with Matt Ryan. So thumbs down as well. You still should have won your division this year, and you had plenty of opportunities to do it.
Yeah, it's disappointing, and I hope they're not the Falcons. But you're probably right though with what they've been. Hopefully they turn things around because I'm a big fan of what they've done. Now we have the Vikings. I'm giving them a thumbs down because 9 was terrible, and you got rid of Sam Darnold, who is now a Super Bowl champion. That being said, you finished on a 5-game winning streak, so maybe there's momentum moving forward, but you got to get a thumbs down. You've picked the wrong quarterback, and you missed the playoffs because of it, so thumbs down for me.
I mean, 9 was terrible. Wasn't he the first rookie quarterback to have 300-yard passing games with multiple touchdowns? I mean, the guy is just playing in his first NFL season, and he didn't even play a full year. Figured it out at the end of it, and you did move on from Sam Darnold, but a lot of people were saying that the Vikings weren't going to be the same anyway. So for me, I kind of got what I expected from the Vikings, so I'm going to give them a paper, just neutral, sideways there. I don't give them a thumbs down necessarily or a thumbs up. I think the future is bright.
Well, hopefully for them. He did play better down the stretch, 5 touchdowns, 2 picks over that 4-game winning streak, but I'm not overly sold on J.J. McCarthy, and you picked the wrong guy, but nonetheless, the Packers. This is easy for me. Thumbs down. You traded for Micah Parsons right before the season started, and although he did get hurt and there was injuries on this team, you finished 9-7-1. You became the 7th seed, and then the Bears, who are in your division, beat you. Who's been the little brother to you? Thumbs down. This team should have been in the potentially the 1 seed category. Potentially, definitely a thumbs down for me. And you finished on a 4-game losing streak.
Yeah, the Bears get 25 thumbs down for me. Actually, make it 29. I'll add your 4-game losing streak at the end of the season plus all 25 points that you blew in the fourth quarter. You can't allow the Bears to score 25 points, but apparently that gets you hired as a head coach in the NFL these days. So,
And then how about the Bears? The Bears got to get 2 thumbs up for me. You, in my opinion, you beat the Rams with that game. Like you go for 2 and you win that game potentially. But Caleb Williams emerged as a star. You have a bright future with Ben Johnson, and you won a playoff game. So, I mean, can it get better than that? You beat the Packers with a 25-point comeback, and then you have one of the greatest plays ever in playoff history with that Cole Kmet touchdown. Absolute thumbs up. You have your guy. Caleb Williams is a star.
yeah, give him a thumbs up. You learn that, well, Caleb Williams isn't Patrick Mahomes, and a lot of people are. You at least got someone who's a Patrick Mahomes light. He can make some of the same throws, do similar things, and then you were right there with the Rams, and then hopefully you're even better next year. But, you know, NFL works in mysterious ways. Commanders had a really good year, and then look what happened. So we'll see with the Bears next year, but I'll give them a thumbs up.
Of course. And then ending it on the NFC East. Or should I say the NFC least? How about the Giants? They absolutely get a thumbs down. Cam Scatterbo, Jackson Dart. Jackson Dart, I believe, was in the conversation for Offensive Rookie of the Year. He doesn't get it. He's in the medical tent every game. You lose Brian Daboll. Thumbs down. Giants, very disappointing season.
Yeah, thumbs down for the Giants as well. I didn't expect too much from them this year, but Jackson Dart simply just got hurt every single game, and you don't want to see that. And then Cam Scatterbo getting injured is tough. Malik Neighbors goes down. Overall, just a rough season for the Giants. And then you have to watch the quarterback you let go sit on the bench in the Super Bowl. Definitely another thumbs down watching Tommy DeVito on the Patriots.
Yes, we hate to see it, but we do love Tommy DeVito. Commanders, easy thumbs down. Not all their fault. Like it's kind of similar to like when we were making fun of the nine. Well, we were making fun of some other teams in the past, but like in the Bucks. But like the Commanders, you were banged up. Jaden Daniels was hurt for most of the season, but you had sky high expectations, and they failed. So you got to get a thumbs down. This is a disappointing year all around.
Yeah, thumbs down. A lot of people had expectations that you could take that jump and get to the Super Bowl. However, how to end with your offensive coordinator getting fired, Jaden Daniels getting injured multiple times this year, and then it went from a Cinderella run this year with Dan Quinn to now, is Dan Quinn the guy this year? So definitely a lot of questions heading into next season. Definitely something you don't want. So thumbs down for me as well.
And then we have the Cowboys at 7-9-1, and honestly, like most people are going to give them a thumbs down, but I'm just giving them a sideways. This is exactly what we predicted. I thought they were going to be 8-8-1, and they were 7-9-1. They let me down, but this is exactly what I thought the Cowboys would be. If anything, I thought they were a little bit better when they had George Pickens and CeeDee Lamb. So, quite honestly, this is what I expected from the Cowboys.
Yeah, I'm honestly going to give them a thumbs up. It's the Cowboys. I thought they would be worse with Pat Shermer, and they had some games where they looked pretty good, and I don't expect the Cowboys to be in the playoffs. I just expect them to sell tickets and be a brand that creates headlines, and that's exactly what they did all season long. And now we're going to go into the offseason, and are we going to pay George Pickens? Are we not going to pay George Pickens? What's going on? Is he going to hold out in the offseason? Are we going to tag him? So already we have headlines brewing for the Cowboys. So they did their job and they played their role that they do in the NFL. So thumbs up, Cowboys. Keep being relevantly irrelevant.
All right. And we got the Eagles coming off the Super Bowl, bit of a hangover. I kind of expected a hangover. I feel like they were a good, bad, or bad, good team. Played a lot of ugly games, had a lot of ugly wins. But yet again, like they won their division and they still made the playoffs. So I'm going to give them a sideways. I could probably be cruel or maybe just a little bit more pessimistic and give them a thumbs down. But I feel like a sideways is fine. You already won the championship. It's a hangover. It is what it is. They'll be back.
Yeah, exactly. Like the Eagles, the fact that they made the playoffs, you lost to the San Francisco 49ers in the first round, but how often do you really get back to the Super Bowl or the playoffs even after losing? Not too often. So for me, like you maintained, I honestly expected them to be worse this year, so I'll also give them a paper just kind of flat for me.
All right. And then we go to the AFC. Let's go with the AFC championships and how they go. Patriots made the Super Bowl. They went 3-14 to 4-3. Drake May was second in the MVP and probably should have won if Matt Stafford had less friends. So they got to get two thumbs up for me.
Yeah, Drake May's got a network, 23 years old. You need more friends in the media that are going to vote for you. Come on, Drake May. But I will give them a thumbs up. They weren't even supposed to be in the playoffs this year. Their over-under was 8.5 wins. I picked them to go 10-7 before the season. They exceeded those expectations by a grand total of 4 wins here and then made a Super Bowl, which nobody saw coming. So, yeah, got to give them 2 thumbs up. Actually, I'll give him 10 thumbs up for Drake May.
Let's do it. And the Bills, how about we give them 17 thumbs down? Because yes, you're 12-5, and yes, you win a playoff game. But the Bills, they didn't have Mahomes, Allen, or Burrow, and you guys lose to Bo Nix in the postseason when Bo Nix was being clowned all season long. You have the wide open door. It's finally Josh Allen's moment, and you literally fumble it away. You literally fumble it away. 4 turnovers in that game, 17 thumbs down. If I was going to give them 18, but then that was fumbled out of Josh Allen's hands as well. So massive, massive disappointment.
Yeah, I'm going to give him 21 thumbs down, 17 for Josh Allen, and then 4 for the 4 turnovers that he had versus the Denver Broncos this year. And honestly, Josh Allen owes Tony Romo an apology. I mean, Tony Romo gives Josh Allen so much free glazing. I mean, his quotes that he was dropping in the Jaguars game were ridiculous. Well, either of these teams that wins has a real shot of winning the Super Bowl, even though we don't have Lamar, Mahomes, or Joe Burrow. That's the reason why the Bills are in the playoffs, because he's pretty good and he beat all those players already. And if he can just get past this Jaguars team, I think he has a shot to win the Super Bowl, because he will have a shot of playing a game. And guess what? He went out there and he got outplayed by Bo Nix, the Oregon Duck. He got Oregon ducked out of the playoffs. So 21 thumbs down for Josh Allen.
And then we have the Dolphins, and this might actually be intercepted with our rating. Lead leader in interceptions, Tua Tagovailoa, 7-10. They collapsed. They were terrible this year, but they did start to win some games at the better half of the year. But overall, season's still a disappointment. I could be nice and give them a sideways, but they deserve a thumbs down. They were a part of the worst top five all year round. So give me a thumbs down for the Dolphins, and hopefully Mike McDaniels is better in LA.
Yeah, I'll give them a thumbs down. It's like the Dolphins returning into form. The Patriots are good, and then the Bills, Jets, and Dolphins struggle. What else is new? I'm not gonna give them like a full thumbs down. I'm gonna give them one of these. Not quite
Yeah.
all the way down though.
Yeah, it's not a sideways thumb and it's not a thumbs down. And then the Jets. Oh, the Jets. What can be said? Aaron Glenn, the mastermind behind the 23rd ranked defense that wore the Lions the following year. What did they do? Well, they rolled out Justin Fields. Justin Fields failed miserably for them. And they are the only team in NFL history to not have an interception all season long. The fact that their coach was a corner who had over 50 interceptions in his career and was a three-time Pro Bowler, one of the better corners of the 2000s. Can I even give them a rating? Do they even deserve the rating? I don't think they do. The Jets, it's the Jets. That's all I'm going to say. But this team, like giving them a negative rating is like almost a positive for them because it's worse. It could have been worse. So yeah, they were pathetic. They have to get so many thumbs down that the thumbs down are just not even quantifiable anymore.
Yeah, I'm gonna be nice and I'm gonna give them a thumbs up because we need teams like the Jets in the NFL that are so entertainingly and shockingly bad. You have to just wonder how their coach still has a job when they're the first team in NFL history to not have an interception one. That's what their coach did in his prime. The fact that they brought him back to coach again next year, this is gonna be Hugh Jackson levels of failure, and then Frank Reich is gonna be the offensive coordinator. Put this team on Hard Knocks immediately for the offseason next year. I mean, if we have Hard Knocks for the Jets, maybe their coach will get fired because their owner sees it and is like, wait a minute, I don't like this. And then Frank Reich, another spiritual head coach as well, so fitting in with
Spiritual. That's Frank Wright, all right. Yeah, I feel like what they should do every year, because nobody wants to do Hard Knocks, just give it to the worst team. And the Jets, they are quantifiably the worst team. Like we're gonna make fun of we can make fun of the Titans and Raiders next, but like the Jets, you have a corner who is a Pro Bowler in the NFL as a corner, and they couldn't get a single interception. Like that's just only the Jets can do that. So they should be Hard Knocks as well.
Also, what was Garrett Wilson's stat? He led the league in receiving, and he didn't play a game since like the second week of October.
Yeah. Garrett Wilson led their team in receiving, and he didn't play after October 15th, I think it was. So like
Yeah.
another Jet stat that's just so Jets it hurts.
I
So
like Hard Knocks being a punishment though, because if you give it to the worst team, what does the worst team have? You're gonna have those guys who are just seeking attention because they know their team's bad, and that's partly why they're bad because they're not focused. So you get some of those entertaining moments, and then you kind of see it materialize throughout the year. So honestly, I think just being the worst team, or you see a situation like the Lions where someone like Dan Campbell comes in, then you see the emergence of a great head coach. Like if we see like
yeah.
Mike Kubiak take control of the Raiders and really turn that team around. You're like, oh, Brock Bowers is a beast. Michael Mayer is also cool. I'm not as mad as him for taking away targets from Brock Bowers from my fantasy team. Okay, maybe I don't hate Ashton Denty.
Yeah, I support that, and maybe that's a good team to pivot to. We go to the AFC West, the Raiders. I mean, Pete Carroll was 875 years old. He was a sentient being at this point. I heard that he vanished into dust just like Yoda did in Empire Strikes Back. So, I mean, the Raiders, they got to get a thumbs down, right? Especially because Geno Smith is the root of all evil. In fact, people blame Geno Smith for being a part of 9/11, but little did they know that Geno Smith was 9/11. Those explosions, Geno Smith. So they get a thumbs down.
Yeah, a lot of people were also comparing Pete Carroll to Jeffrey Epstein. Kind of a lot of the facial structure is similar there. So Geno Smith is in the Epstein files as well. But I'm going to give the Raiders a thumbs up because they proved us exactly right. They hired Pete Carroll. We said, what are you doing? This is a disaster. And, some of those bad teams that come back around and give us a good take and make us look smart, have to take a victory lap. So honestly, Raiders, good job. You proved us right.
Yes, and they've proven me wrong in the past, so I'm here for it. Chiefs, easy thumbs down. Easy thumbs down, right? Losing 6 consecutive games, 6-11, heartbreak. After 3 consecutive Super Bowls, thumbs down, right? It's got to be the thumbs down.
I mean, I'm going to give them a neutral one. Patrick Mahomes gets hurt, and, you go to 3 straight Super Bowls. How much longer can you really keep it going? And the fact that they prove that it's not just Patrick Mahomes keeping Josh Allen away from the Super Bowl. It is, in fact, keeping Josh Allen away, and then it allowed the Patriots to get to the Super Bowl. I'm honestly neutral on the Chiefs this year, so I don't hate that they were bad this year, and I think them just having a down year, it's okay. So I'm not going to jump all over them and give them a thumbs down. You deserve a break, Kansas City.
Yeah, I think that's fair. Chargers, I'm giving the Chargers a thumbs up. I mean, they had a better season than I expected. Their offensive line was the worst offensive line I've ever seen in my life. Every single player on their offensive line was rated the worst in the NFL. So the fact that they made the playoffs and were 11-6, they get a thumbs up. And I believe they beat the Chiefs twice.
Yeah, I give Justin Herbert a thumbs up. The Chargers, no. I mean, Lad McConkey post Charlie Kirk has not been the same.
Has anybody been
after
the
watching
same?
his hero go out the way he did, it was definitely tragic to watch. We all experienced how horrible it was, and if you didn't, you're a monster. But Lad McConkey just hasn't been the same since post Charlie Kirk, even though Charlie Kirk made an appearance in the playoffs for the Texans.
That's true. He did. Chargers, I think they deserve a thumbs up, but they deserve a sideways too because they did play terribly in the playoffs. Broncos, got to get 2 thumbs up. They almost beat the Patriots with Jared Stidham, and they were the best team in the all season long. Nobody believed in them, but they were 14-3. They also made us look smart because we said they were going to be 14-3. So 2 thumbs up for the Broncos, making me right and having a good season.
Yeah, we had them neck and neck with the Chiefs. We predicted both of them to go 12-5 to start the year. And the Broncos, if you're predicting NFL teams, I feel like as long as you're within 3 games, that's a pretty good window to be in. So we're in that kind of 2-game window for the Broncos. Prove us right, and then end up being the number 1 seed. And we had them kind of there alternating with the Chiefs who was going to win the division. So good job, Broncos. Hopefully everything is okay with Bo Nix and Sean Payton next year.
God willing. And then AFC South, the Jaguars, 13-4, almost beats the Bills in that postseason game, but 13-4 for them. Duval County finishes on an 8-game bender. So Jags, got to have a thumbs up here, surely.
No, thumbs down. You should have beat the Bills in the first game. You go for it on 4th down, Trevor Lawrence. I mean, what I say about this team, they're chaotic throughout the year, and then Trevor Lawrence goes to jump for the 4th down to get it. And then he's 6'6", and then his calf gets hit on the turf, and then the Bills take it all the way down and get to a touchdown. And then Trevor Lawrence throws an interception at the end of the game. And then your kicker, who broke NFL records for the longest field goal, misses 2 field goals, and then you end up losing that game because of it. So thumbs down. Jaguars should have been better.
Oh, God, then I'm scared to see what you have to say about the Texans then, because they finished on a 9-game winning streak. They started off, I think, 1-5 or 1-4, and then C.J. Stroud just turns into fucking Netanyahu and just throws 4 interceptions in the postseason. Has 10 fumbles in 2 games, just complete disaster. So, I would give them a thumbs up for how good they were the regular season, but they got to finish with a thumbs down because, buddy, 4 picks, a fumble. Just terrible. And part of the reason why the Patriots made the Super Bowl was because of how bad C.J. Stroud was. So I'm giving him a sideways, honestly.
Yeah, the Texans should have made the Super Bowl this year, similar to the Rams. And when I was picking the Texans and Patriots games, I said I'm picking the Patriots, but I think the Texans should win this game and they have the better roster. I just have the feeling that the Patriots are going to come out and win it because of coaching and Mike Vrabel and their defense, and that's exactly what happened. And just because you start 1-5 and finish on a 9-game winning streak doesn't mean you had a great season. How about you don't start 1-5 and then you don't have to go on a 9-game winning streak to end the season? Crazy how that works, right?
Well, with that logic, how does the Colts feel? Because they started off amazing. They were Super Bowl favorites at one point at 7-2, and how did they finish? They were 8-9. Colts, they get a thumbs up for me. Like their season, they started off. They were the Warriors. They were the Warriors with Kevin Durant and Boogie Cousins and the Splash Brothers and Draymond Green. Everybody was there. We even had David Lee ring chasing at one point with them. It was great. And then Daniel Jones gets hurt, and Jonathan Taylor comes back down to earth. And we remember, like, wait, Shane Steichen's like probably an average head coach at best. They lose 7 consecutive games. I called it when they were 7-2. I said these guys are frauds, and where am I now? I am doing my victory lap. So the Colts, you want to give me credit to the Raiders because they made us look smart. The Colts made me look like I was fucking Socrates. So thumbs up for the Colts for that reason.
Yeah, I give the Colts a thumbs up because even though they did have a meltdown, they still finished better than I thought they would this regular season. I never bought into the Daniel Jones hype either. You can go back, watch some of our clips from that week, and like the Colts this year, like I just don't see it, especially because you have Daniel Jones. I get he's won a playoff game, but just his overall body of work, I don't believe in. And then the Colts ended up proving us right. So thumbs up. I still think they overachieved though.
I would agree. And then the Titans, they got it. I mean, they were the worst team in football, and it was like sometimes they had games that were so bad that we're like, let's just call this a mercy rule. So Titans, like, they got to get a thumbs down. They had a rough season. But that being said, they have Robert Saleh. So moving forward, I give them a thumbs up. But they did have a rough season nonetheless.
Yeah, rough year for the Titans. Not a great year to be a Titans fan. You played competitive towards the end of the year, had some flashes of what Cam Ward could be, but I will give you a thumbs down as well. I won't put it all the way down, so I won't be mean to the Titans. I don't want to pile on, but they do have to get a thumbs down.
All right. And then last division is the North. Let's start with the lowly Browns, 5-12. They make history with Myles Garrett. And they also make history with Shedeur Sanders, but they are 5-12. They finished on a 2-game winning streak, putting them out of the 1 seed considerations, but they got to be a thumbs down. It's just the Browns. It's nothing. There's never a thumbs up for the Browns ever.
Yeah, it's just the way it is for the Browns. Thumbs down. You can never figure out your quarterback situation. You had Baker, you let him go. The whole Deshaun Watson, and now Shedeur Sanders, there's going to be a lot of pressure, and now you have to be kind of stuck with him, or people are going to accuse you of some mean accusations.
Well, he is a Pro Bowler after all, so, you know.
Pro Bowler Shedeur Sanders.
Pro Bowler Shedeur Sanders. It has a ring to it. And then the Bengals, they get a thumbs down because just like every other year, they can't start out winning football games until November. Pretty much until my birthday, they can't win games. And then this year, like they run it back with Zach Taylor, who is not a good coach. And then Joe Burrow gets banged up. It's like Bengals, definitely a thumbs down.
Yeah, thumbs down for the Bengals. Joe Burrow gets injured, but you had plenty of opportunities. That Bears game, what the hell was that? You also lost to the Jets. I mean, 2 games right there that would have put you in the playoffs if you were able to hold on. So have to have a thumbs down for both of those games for the Bengals. And that Vikings game, you got destroyed.
That was awful. That was one of the worst games ever. And really, like the only highlight was Joe Flacco at some points during this season, just raking with them. But that was it. Ravens get a thumbs down also because you have Lamar Jackson, Derrick Henry, Kyle Hamilton, all this talent, and you go 8-9. Definite 2 thumbs down for the Ravens. One of the most disappointing teams all of this NFL season. Disgraceful season, and then John Harbaugh's out the door. You replace it with Jesse Minter, but 2 thumbs down for the Ravens. Super disappointing season.
Yeah, thumbs down for the Ravens. Lamar goes out. You seemingly fall apart, and then you lost to the Steelers to eventually not make the playoffs. So that is definitely tough as well. Have some tough games versus the Bengals down the stretch there. So not a great year for the Ravens, and your coach got fired. So obviously get a thumbs down.
And then the Steelers, who have defined mediocrity for the last decade, not winning a playoff game since 2016. They were 10-7. I wanted them to be 9-8, but they have to get the epitome of the halfway mark. They are not good, nor they are not bad. They got blown out by the Texans, but Aaron Rodgers showed flashes of old Aaron Rodgers, so they get the midway point. They get a sideways.
Yeah, they get. Oh, it's so close to being a thumbs up, but you're still the Steelers, and you still haven't won a playoff game either. And then DK Metcalf punching a fan,
Oh yeah.
and then he misses the last part of the season, and then also DK Metcalf being his usual self in the playoffs, and then you realize, oh yeah, this guy's James Harden, where he can be really good. He has a lot of talent, but as soon as the playoffs come around, you're like, where did this guy go exactly with all of this talent? And then Aaron Rodgers hits him in the hands and then never throws him the ball again the rest of the game versus the Texans. And you needed to, especially against that defense.
Yeah, and they got destroyed 30-6. Could be the last time we ever see Aaron Rodgers, and that's the outcome. Just not the way to go for a Hall of Famer. So, yeah, just mid all around. But that's kind of a recap of all 32 teams. We recap the Super Bowl, the halftime show. Where does it rank over the last decade? We talked about how we would give a rating for each and every team in the NFL. So you've been recapped as far as the Super Bowl and how everything fared. That being said, before we end our show, we do our what's we've been watching of late. So I'll point it to you. What have we been watching? I know you watched Fargo and you played some Far Cry. What's been on the slate this past week?
Yeah, so this week I watched a movie, and I watched Minority Report. I'd heard a lot about this movie, especially like being into like movies when I was younger, working at a movie theater. It was just one of those movies I never got around to watching. But you have Tom Cruise in this movie. It's directed by Steven Spielberg, and essentially, if you don't know the concept, they have these three Krogs, and he works for the Department of Pre-Crime. Yes, I said pre-crime, not pre-cum. That's the department. And essentially, it just predicts future crimes, and then you go there and stop it, and then you arrest people. So you kind of have that whole moral battle of, do people actually have free will, and is their future set in stone? And at one point, Tom Cruise, who's the top cop essentially in this organization, gets evidence that there's a pre-crime of him committing a murder, and then he has to essentially go into the deep web about how this company was created, essentially who the owner of the company is, who founded it. He's just going through some deep lore on him, and there's a lot of really good twists and turns in this movie, and it does a good job keeping you on your toes. Colin Farrell is in the movie as well. I thought he did a good job kind of as the antagonist, and then Tom Cruise was a solid protagonist as always in this movie, and it kind of just keeps you going. It's not necessarily the standard Tom Cruise, like just straight up action movie you're getting. It's an interesting concept, and you don't really know where it's going until the last hour of the movie. And it's one of those movies, it's 2 hours and 32 minutes, and as soon as I finished it, I was kind of curious to go back and rewatch it, because there's a lot of just hidden gems and hidden meanings in this movie. So this is a solid, if you're in sci-fi, it's a solid A+ movie for me. And it's just one of those movies I never got around to watching, but it is Spielberg, it's Tom Cruise, so you're getting A-level talent there.
Yeah, and it's often ranked. I'm looking at the Wikipedia page. It's often ranked as one of the top 10 science fiction movies of all time. And over the last 15 years, it's been ranked as like one of the best of this millennium, essentially. So it's been well regarded. They actually have a TV series with Fez as a police detective, which I just found out. I just looked that up and I found that out. So if you want to watch more of it, they have Fez as a police detective. Minority Report got canceled immediately. pretty much after one full year. So, um,
Is that one of the CBS shows that you see like, and you're just betting with your friends? What show's gonna get canceled that we're seeing on like commercials for CBS?
yeah. So I just looked up because I've heard of Minority Report, but I just want to make sure it's the right one. And yeah, they picked it up May 9th of 2015, and it was canceled May 13th of 2016. But
Nice.
if you want to watch Fez as the police detective, there you go. You're gonna have a reason to watch that. They have Stark Sands in there, Megan Good. Um, so yeah, if that's an interest of yours. But as far as sci-fi, like I've been on a big sci-fi kick, so I might actually give this a try, especially because it's Spielberg and Tom Cruise,
It's on
um,
Paramount.
and it's on Paramount. And because I just watched a Tom Cruise classic yesterday or 2 days ago, um, Eyes Wide Shut. One of the few Stanley Kubrick
Mm.
movies I haven't seen yet. Watched Eyes Wide Shut. For those who have not seen it, it's the last movie of Stanley Kubrick's career before he passed, and it's him and, dare I say, peak. Have you seen this movie, by the way? Before I get into it,
No.
it
Is it
is
on Paramount?
peak Nicole Kidman. I don't know what your thoughts are on Nicole Kidman, but this is the best Nicole Kidman has ever looked, ever acted. She is incredible in this movie. And then you have Tom Cruise. Essentially, like the best way they describe it is on the Wikipedia page is um, Nicole Kidman admits to having like a sexual fantasy. They go to this big ball, and both of them are kind of like flirtatious with other people. Tom Cruise is flirting with these two supermodels, and she's flirting with like this really rich um, male figure. And at the end of it, like they kind of have like this argument, and she admits like, yeah, I had a fantasy that we hooked up, and like it is what it is, but I didn't do it. I didn't do anything. So then Tom Cruise goes on like this huge downward spiral essentially where he like hires a prostitute, he fucking goes to like this secret sex like almost cult in a way, and especially like given like the most recent like Epstein shit, it's very like secret society based around essentially. But it's really good psychological drama they call it, but where it ranks as far as like best Kubrick movies, it's hard to kind of decide. But for a movie just unremoved from Stanley Kubrick, if you're a Tom Cruise fan, if you're a Nicole Kidman fan, this is a great movie. I gave it like a 4.5 out of 5, but really really good. Highly recommend.
Okay. Is that one on Paramount too?
I think it's on. I actually watched this on Tubi. It's my first movie I ever saw on Tubi.
On Tubi?
Yeah, that's like,
All right.
and when in doubt, if you don't know where it is, it's probably on Tubi. Tubi has everything actually.
Yeah. If I ever get around to downloading Tubi, I'll definitely check it out. Yeah, that's one of the few Tom Cruise movies I haven't seen. I've seen most of his classics there, so I'm definitely gonna check that one out. Sounds interesting, especially with all the recent developments and documents coming out. So I'll watch that one. If you want to watch another Tom Cruise movie as well, I know you've also been on a mob kick and then a little bit of a different role for him. On Paramount, they have a movie called Collateral with
Hmm.
Tom Cruise. Have you
It's on
seen
my
that one?
watch list. It's on my watch list.
That one's really good. He like essentially is a hitman and he has a certain amount of hits that he's going to do throughout the night, and then Jamie Foxx is kind of similar to like when he was Electro in the Amazing Spider-Man 2, kind of just this goofy taxi driver, and then he forces him to drive him around the city. It's like kind of taxi driver esque, and he's doing all of these hits, and then he's just kind of bullying Jamie Foxx the entire movie, and you get to see Tom Cruise be a villain in this one. And a lot of people like don't like him, so if you want to kind of like love to hate Tom Cruise, this is a really solid movie for that one. But it's definitely on my list of movies to rewatch as well. Kind of has similar vibes to Nightcrawler as well.
Bet. Okay. Yeah, I'll save that. So that's Collateral. You said.
Collateral, yeah.
Yeah, I
I
gotta
think it's
save
a
that.
Michael Mann movie.
It's directed, but yeah, Michael Mann does it, and then you also have Mark Ruffalo in there, Jada Pinkett Smith. You got Javier Bardem, Jason Statham. Okay. Um, but yeah, I'll save this, and it's on Paramount. I'd much rather watch a movie on fucking Paramount than fucking Tubi. Tubi was like, I had it set. Have you ever like set out like this is the movie I'm gonna watch tonight, and then it's not on the streaming services that you have, so you're like, fuck, how am I gonna watch this movie? That was what happened with Eyes Wide Shut. I'm like, all right, I don't know when I'm gonna watch this, but I want to watch this. So we're watching Eyes Wide Shut. I'm not gonna look through. I'm just gonna pick it. And then it was only on Tubi. I'm like, well, shit. I guess we're watching it on fucking Tubi of all places. But we
Yeah,
got to watch it.
I would pay the $5 on Amazon not to rent it. It's like still cheaper than going to a movie theater. So
Yeah, it was free. I was like, shit. Well, it was good. I mean, it was sometimes the ads are good. Like certain movies, like especially if you're on a date, which I wasn't in this case, but in the event that I am on a date in the future, watching a movie, Tubi's great because there's an ad like every 20 minutes in the movie, which sucks, but it's also free. Like you don't pay anything, so depends on the movie. Like if we're watching it with a girl, it's great. But if you're watching it alone and you're just sitting in your bed and you just get a random ad for like I don't know drugs, basically,
go
it's
Poe.
just not worth it.
Yeah, that's
Yeah,
the other thing. At the Super Bowl, like every other ad was like, "Did you know America's fat and we all need to lose weight?" They're
yeah,
like comparing like taking a experimental drug to if you could take a pill to parallel park, wouldn't you do it? Not if I could get hypercancer from it. Like,
yeah, yeah. The Lexapro commercials, and then like
yeah,
following that, there's also like fucking fast food commercials, and there's fucking all these different other commercials. I'm like, okay, this is why we're fat. Like we're fat because we can go to McDonald's and get pancake sandwiches. Like that's
yeah,
why we're fat. We're fat because we can get a fucking Doritos Locos taco. We can get a hard shell that is literally a Dorito, which is also why America's fantastic. Like
yeah.
that's like if I ran for president, I wouldn't run on like America Pride. I would run on like we have a we can go to Taco Bell and they decided like let's make a hard shell as tasty as possible and make it a Dorito. Like
Gordita
that's why we're
Crunch.
great.
Or you can put a Gordita Crunch around the Doritos Locos Taco now.
Which is crazy. And they put a fucking cheese it in a burrito there too. Like
Yeah,
McDonald's made it like, oh, we like breakfast sandwiches and we like pancakes. Let's put them together and make the most delicious breakfast sandwich you'll ever have in your life. Fucking a quaint town in New Hampshire. They're like, oh, let's make a burger with grilled cheese as the buns and make it. Oh, Freddy's. Freddy's does this. If
Freddy's.
you like Freddy's like, oh wait, people like grilled cheese, people like burger. Let's just make the buns grilled cheese and make it fucking incredible. That is why I love America. Because you don't
Yeah.
get that in fucking other places in America, anywhere else outside of America.
Yeah, the fast food menus though, if you look at like some of the international fast food menus, we should do that for some of our like top 10s going forward in the off season. Do like top 10 best and worst or top 5 best and worst international fast food items, like stuff you don't see at McDonald's or KFC and they just have them in other countries. There's some pretty bizarre stuff.
Yeah, that could be fun. But Super Bowl is over now, so no football for 7 months. So we're gonna have to fill some time.
Yeah, we got the NBA. We'll next week we'll go over and preview, go over the free agents, kind of go over what each team needs as well, and then get into a little bit of the NBA. It's starting to come around. Kind of go over what we missed. You really don't need to cover the NBA until April, anyways. That's when the action starts. But we made it through another season of the NFL. Made it through the Super Bowl. Another year, the Bills didn't get it done. Another year, the Patriots made it to the Super Bowl. So appreciate everyone who tuned in and subscribed this year. Definitely appreciate it. We will be back next week to go through and start previewing the offseason and some of the NBA, I guess.
Sounds good to me. Most importantly of all, stay brick.
Stay brick.